We're going to go ahead and call the Tuesday, April 9th Commission meeting to order. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces, which will be followed by an invocation by Commissioner Lohr, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Flesher. If everybody will please rise.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to meet today in a civil fashion. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to join as a community, solve the problems that we need to solve. Our Heavenly Father, today we will be discussing not only Child Abuse Month, not only recognizing our youngsters from the Boys and Girls Clubs, but also, as important, Victims' Rights Week. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you provide us the knowledge that we've been commissioned to do upon this board. In your Son's name, amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America, land of the free because of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. First item is additions and deletions to the agenda. I did have a request from Solid Waste if we could move 15BA, which is the residential paper shredding event, up. So I'd like to move that up to right after proclamations and presentations, if that's okay with everybody. And if that is, are there any other additions or deletions?
Madam Chair, move approval as amended.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, with that, we're going to start our proclamations and presentations with a proclamation for the Prevention of Child Abuse Month, April 2024. This will be presented by Commissioner Ehrman to the Exchange Club of Vero Beach in Indian River County. If you guys would like to come on up while Commissioner Ehrman reads the proclamation, it's all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Welcome, everyone, this morning. And I'm going to read the proclamation for designating this month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And this is not a great proclamation to read, but we've got to make sure that it is a real problem out there, and it still is in this world, and it's very sad. But y'all are doing everything you can, and it's much appreciated. And we're going to move forward with this proclamation. Proclamation designating the month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas child abuse and neglected are serious and growing problems affecting more than 3.1 million of our nation's children annually and over 3,400 children locally. And whereas the abuse and neglect of children can cause severe, costly, and lifelong problems, including physical and mental health problems, school failure, and criminal behavior, which affects all of society. Increased public awareness of the devastating problem of child abuse and neglect is our strongest weapon in the fight to end it. And whereas many community organizations, such as all the local exchange clubs, Indian River, Treasure Coast, Vero Beach, Fellsmere, and Sebastian, the Hibiscus Children's Center, and other organizations who make children a top priority, take action to support the physical, social, emotional, and educational development and competency of all children. And whereas during the month of April, Prevent Child Abuse Florida, in collaboration with the Governor's Office and the Adoption of Child Protection, the Florida Department of Children and Families, and our Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida will implement Pinwheels for Prevention, a statewide campaign promoting awareness of healthy child development and positive parenting practices. The National Exchange Club will honor all children by wearing blue on Mondays during the month of April. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of April 2024 be designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Indian River County, and all residents are urged to engage in activities whose purpose is to strengthen families and communities to provide the optimal environment for healthy child development. Adopted this 9th day of April 2024 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Thank you for all you do for this, and we're definitely grateful. Thank you.
First off, let me thank you for recognizing this month as Prevention of Child Abuse Month. Prevention of child abuse has been our national project with Exchange since 1979. We have established in the state of Florida 4 child abuse prevention centers, and we have a 5th one underway. This centers provide a program called Parenting Matters. Parenting Matters focus on keeping families together, and they go into a home to prevent the abuse. And it prevents the children from ending up in foster care. In 2003, in the state of Florida, 97 children lost their life to child abuse. And at St. Helens Catholic Church, we have 97 flags up this month representing those children. We'll move those in the middle of the month up to the park in Sebastian. The centers are basically, that was established the most recently was at Youth Guidance right here in Vero Beach, and is focused on prevention of child abuse in our county. Exchange goal is to make our communities better places. One of our major projects is the air show. Join us on May 3rd through 5th at the airport for the air show. And thank you again.
Take a picture. Can you take a picture for us? Okay. In the committee. All right. Thank you.
All right. Our next presentation is going to be a presentation by the Boys and Girls Club of Indian River for their Youth of the Year. Come on up, ladies, don't be shy. Good to have you guys here, and we're happy to be able to celebrate with you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm gonna go back. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Laura Lutker. I am the Chief Operating Officer at the Boys and Girls Club of Indian River County, and I am here just to tell you a little bit about our program and introduce to you our 2024 Youth of the Year, Angela Martinez Hernandez. The Youth of the Year program is something that was established by the Boys and Girls Club of America back in actually 1947, so it's been around for a while. Thank you. It's a leadership program that celebrates our youth who embody the characteristics and values of leadership, service, academic excellence, healthy lifestyles. It's a really prestigious program that recognizes the best of the best, and so we're really honored to be here to present her to you today. Our members have an opportunity once they succeed at the county level to then go on to represent our organization at the state level. And then after that, if they win at the state level, which We think Angela will. She will have they'll have the opportunity to represent us at the Southeast regional level and then the national level. In order to participate in this program, it really is quite a rigorous process. They have to prepare a 3-minute long speech about their experiences, write a number of essays about their life experiences, things that they want to accomplish in the world, ways that they've grown as an individual. They have to prepare their cover letters and resumes and talk about how they can be an advocate for America's youth. They have to receive letters of recommendation, so be highly recommended by their community members, participate in community service, and just to highlight, in this past year, 12 months, Angela has accumulated more than 100 community service hours. She has to challenge, or they have to challenge themselves academically, and then also they're a role model for their peers, not only in the Boys and Girls Club, but within the community. I mentioned a little bit about the process, just to give you an overview of the timeline. We start this process in August of every year, and we go all the way. We're in April right now, so she has been working on her materials. She's been working on her speech. She's been practicing her interview since August. So she has been doing this for quite some time, and it does take quite a bit of commitment and dedication. And now I would like to present to you our 2024 Youth of the Year, and she is going to present her speech to you all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angela Martinez Hernandez, and I'm standing here before you today as a first-generation Mexican American, the first in my family to be born here in the United States. This accomplishment came with many sacrifices, one of which was my time. My parents, who are immigrants, don't know much English, so my birthright was to learn English and help them with anything they needed. Because of this, I felt as if I grew up too fast. But when attending the Boys and Girls Club, I felt like I was able to let go of all that responsibility and just be a kid. Being the oldest out of 4 kids and the firstborn in a new country isn't easy. It comes with responsibilities that monopolize your time and pull you away from being with your friends. As I grew up, I was constantly translating and making sure my siblings were succeeding in school. In a way, I always thought being the oldest was a burden that I didn't ask for, that these duties just fell upon me the day I was born. As I grew up, I thought my adolescence was slipping away, and I realized it was because of all that I was doing for my family. I was constantly making sure my mom understood her spam calls, making sure my siblings understood their schoolwork, and getting them ready for school every morning. When you add that I moved every few months to follow the harvesting seasons, it felt like I had lived several different lives by the time I was a teenager. Now, as I've gotten older, I don't think of it as a burden anymore because I realized that it was an opportunity to make sure my siblings didn't have to go through what I went through, to make sure they took all the time to enjoy all the fun that comes with being a kid. While yes, I did have to grow up fast, I still had to learn a few things that my parents weren't experts in. That being that it's okay to let go of it all. The Boys and Girls Club helped me realize that it's okay to feel emotions because they all understood where I came from. Because of the club, I now make sure my siblings know that just because you need an education, they can still choose where they want to go and change their minds. I make sure they know that no one is perfect and it's fine to cry and be angry. Since attending the club, I have had the opportunity to go all out on my teenage years. It is always so much fun with them there, and there is never a dull moment in the teen room. It is filled with the type of joy and comfort that makes a person want to open up to the staff. The field trips are always so much fun that there are now core memories of mine that I will never forget and I will always cherish. I have also learned I have the ability to affect change. And as the Youth of the Year, I would make it my mission to bring attention to the unfair immigration policies set in the United States and how immigrant children are disproportionately affected. I want to be a voice for my peers and other children who have also experienced the hardship of acting as their parents' advocate. Those of us who are forced to grow up far too fast because of the lack of resources available and the stigma our parents face as immigrants. I'm here today not just because I was selected to represent Fellsmere as this year's Youth of the Year, but I want to demonstrate to my siblings and other members that it is possible to succeed no matter what your background is or where you have been. As the next generation, we are a powerful force with the ability to change the face of America. I am learning every day how to be more open-minded and resilient, and how to use my voice for good. I am positive with the tools that I have learned at the Boys and Girls Club that I will not only make a difference in my family, but in my community too. I now know a good leader never stops growing, and I never will. Thank you.
Angela, that was a lovely speech, and I love what you said. A good leader never stops growing, and that's absolutely correct. Thank you so much, and good luck at state. I, like your peers here, have no doubt that you will come back victorious, and you'll be going on to nationals. So just thank you so much for sharing that with us. Commissioner?
I want everybody to know, how old are you?
17.
18. God bless us. Thank you.
The future looks very bright, doesn't it, Commissioner Fletcher?
Yes. Very rewarding in your delivery. Thank you.
Well done,
Thank you.
Angel.
Well done.
Product.
Fantastic. All
Thank you.
right, if you guys want to, do you want a picture? There's like a mark on the floor where the middle is.
For the photography.
Congratulations and very good luck. So Jacksonville, April 24th through the 27th, correct? We will be sending all the happy thoughts Indian River County has to send.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Our next item is going to be, if I can find my pen, a proclamation designating April 21st through the 27th as Crime Victims Week in Indian River County. This will be presented by Commissioner Fletcher to Mr. Zelno, the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, and the Indian River County Sheriff's Office Victim Services Unit. If y'all want to come up,
I think we also
don't
have
be shy.
Barbara Faulkner is here.
Oh, is Barbara here? Okay, come on up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No civilization is void of victims. Unfortunately, it exists. We are also blessed that we have a reduced, lower victim rate here in Indian River County. But that also means that we need to recognize our victims, recognize their rights, their existence, and their right to justice. So with that, I have the honor of presenting its proclamation designating April 21st through 27th, 2024 as Crime Victims Week in Indian River County. Whereas since 1981, National Crime Victims' Rights Week has challenged us to confront barriers to achieving justice for all victims while still reflecting on how far we've come. And whereas millions of people every year in the United States are victims of crime, including terrible acts of violence, loss or damage of personal property, and financial exploitation, and these citizens may lose a sense of trust and safety that can never be fully recovered. And whereas persistent barriers prevent many victims from obtaining the support and services they need and the justice they deserve, and fewer than half of the violent crimes have ever been reported. And local community initiatives, especially those that build trust with law enforcement, are key to preventing violence. Whereas it is essential to improve the access to services and the safety for our historically marginalized and underserved communities, combat the surge in anti-Asian harassment and other hate crimes, reduce gun violence and its impacts on victims, families, and first responders. And whereas every crime victim deserves justice and assurance that the safety and welfare will be protected, and by being united for victims' rights services, we again gain the strength as the community and offer a tangible support to the victims who seek to recover in the aftermath of crime. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that April 21st through 27th, 2024 is designated as Crime Victims Week and in Indian River County, and the board calls upon all citizens to participate in the events that raise awareness of victims' rights and to reach out and to serve the victims in need. Duly adopted this 9th day of April, 2024, and it is signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, Paul.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Fletcher, and all the board members here. We're deeply appreciative of your attendance at our functions, and we've got one on over at Memorial Island, April 27th, Saturday at 9 o'clock. So we appreciate you so much for being there. We have some distinguished people here with us today. The Director of Victim Services for the 19th Judicial Circuit Court, which includes Indian River County and 3 other counties, Director Barbara Faulkner. Barbara. And we have Sheriff's Office that's been absolutely invaluable in helping the Coalition of the Victims of Crime in this county. And they're responsible for putting this event on at Memorial Island along with the Coalition. We have Sharon, who writes the checks to the victims of crime, so she was here by mandate, you know. Who do I leave out? You know? We got a great showing here by the Sheriff's Office, and as well it should be. So we've got unprecedented growth in our state. It's no big secret, but the demographics that I was reading is 1,000 families per day in the state. That's pretty incredible. And with that, you know, we've got our trickle-down effect into the county as well. So with that comes the growth. With that comes the need for more law enforcement, and it comes with all the problems of growth, which is crime. So the Indian River County Victims' Rights Coalition is going to continue to work with law enforcement and provide the acute care financial needs of our families affected by crime, which is what we do. So we're registered currently as a 501c nonprofit, and we will be reviewing that this year in order to provide more assistance to the victims of crime and those in need. The families and those affected by crimes appreciate the leadership that you and our coalition provide, as well as law enforcement. Indian County Sheriff's Office and our coalition are gathering at Memorial Island on April 27th at 9 o'clock on Saturday, and we appreciate so many of you that are coming. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your attendance, and this year's theme comes from the Office of Victims of Crime in Washington, and it reads, "Services and Hope for Crime Victims. How would you help?" And as all we know from our sophomore English classes, help is a verb, and they're speaking to us. So how are we going to help the victims of crime? With that, I'd like to just offer the microphone here to the Director of Victim Services that we work with, State Attorney's Office, Barbara Faulkner.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this proclamation today. I also want to thank our state attorney, and he offers his thanks also, Tom Backadall, between the Sheriff's Office here in Indian River with their wonderful advocate staff and our advocates at the State Attorney's Office. We do our best to ensure that victims' rights are being upheld every day. And we have always felt Indian River County's coalition has been absolutely the most supportive in helping us provide for financial needs for victims and just support for our victims in this area. So I do want to thank Paul Zolno for all he does for the coalition. He is amazing. So Thank you again, and Sheriff Flowers.
Thank you guys for taking time to recognize our victims. It's such a critical event every year, and Sheriff Lohr, I know you and I went to many events years and years in a row, and that's one of the reasons why I formed our Cold Case Committee. And we've been very successful, and this Thursday I'm actually going to be announcing a closure for the 1968 Milkman homicide that many people recognize from our community. It's been unsolved for many years, and we're going to put some closure to that. And so that's one less victim, one more family that's going to have closure, and we're very proud of that. That's work that we continue to do. Those events every year moved me, hearing those names, seeing those people, sitting with the McPhersons, and just recognizing there's real people on the other side of these crimes. And so it really means a lot to me personally and to our agency that you guys take time to recognize these victims. I want to thank Paul for all the work that he does. Of course, our Victims Advocate team is absolutely incredible. I also want to thank Paul for going ahead and telling you guys that people are moving here, that we need more law enforcement, because I know it's almost budget season. So he's already set you guys up for my budget when it comes over. So I appreciate that. But thank you guys again for taking time to recognize our victims, and we will certainly be there en masse to support the families that are still hurting as a result of crimes. Thank you.
So just to let you know that Sheriff and I didn't cooperate just before I made that announcement. I want to recognize, and I was remiss in not recognizing her because she was my victim advocate during my time of crisis, and she's invaluable to Barbara as well at the State Attorney's Office. Her name is Julie Stroika. Julie, thank you. So thank you very much. Is it time for pictures now?
Well, Paul, I just had a question because, Madam Chair, you presented quite a cadre of individuals who worked this great effort. Unfortunately, resources are limited. Is there any volunteer opportunities that anyone could reach out? There's a lot of folks that are looking for volunteer opportunities.
Absolutely.
And are you in need in that arena?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I left that out, and it's a valuable subject. The coalition needs volunteers, and we're going to be asking and reaching out to them on the 27th of April, but this is the greatest time as any to ask for them. We have so many of our volunteers invest their time, their own time, and their own money in this thing to help victims of crime. We have some people that are very in need right now. We had a case where there was a fire, I think, and this person needed quite a bit of funding for acute care. She needs a place to live with her 2 minor children, but because it doesn't officially fall into the crime area, although it's arson, we've got to debate to see what we can do to keep her off the street. So yeah, we need help. We always need help. We have a victim impact panel where I speak to the DUI, court order DUIs every other month. We get as many as 70 people, as little as 40. We charge them $50 a piece to come in, and that goes right into the victims' pool. And when we get a call from the victims' advocates, we say, okay, is this legit? Let's take a look at it. We get a vote on it, and 9 times out of 10 we vote yes to help the person. Whether it's housing, whether it's food, whether it's a travel ticket, no matter what it is, the payments are made to the vendors. So it reduces any absconding with the monies. So yes, thanks for mentioning that, Commissioner, and please put the word out. Our coalition is looking for volunteers to help us. We had a very valuable person, Becky Baum, that resigned this year because she's just an overload at the State Attorney's Office with dealing with crimes. And so we need good people, and I'm blessed and thankful for this group behind me because we couldn't do it without them, and we can't do it without the help from our volunteers. So I appreciate so much your just showing up at these functions, because when the victims of crime look up and they see you, they know you're serious about helping them. So thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Sheriff? task, we still need volunteers. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul, as always.
The seniors are doing well, too. Thank you for what you do. All right? How's that? You need an advocate yourself. Somebody help me.
All right, thank you, guys.
You're released.
All right. Our next item is going to be, where am I? The residential paper shredding event on April 27th. Ladies, come on up and tell us where we can get our surplus paper shredded.
Good morning. We have our paper shredding event April 27th. It's a Saturday at Southeast Secure Shred, the same location we've had it at for many years. It's free to residents, 3 boxes, 35 pounds total, 8 a.m. to noon. And our last event was November 18th. We had 560 cars, which diverted 8 tons of paper to the landfill. So, and it's funded, we pay for the advertising, and Waste Management, WM, pays for the cars themselves. Southeast Secure Shredding charges $7, but they cover that cost. So it's a great partnership, and it diverts paper from the landfill, so.
Oh, that's a great thing.
Yep.
Anything we can do to keep stuff out of landfill.
Yep, so April 27th.
April 27th.
Yep,
Be there, be square.
yep,
Bring all your papers.
away.
Yes.
3 boxes worth, 35 pounds.
yep.
All
And there's
right.
flyers, this will be up on the website soon, now that it's
Okay.
approved, and there's flyers in the lobby.
Okay,
and around town,
fantastic.
so.
Now, do you guys just do this twice a year?
Yes, April and November is when we try to.
April and
have it,
November,
yep.
so right after tax season and right before Christmas.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right.
All right,
Thank you, guys. Thanks for doing that.
Yep.
All right, Commissioners, the next item is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 6th.
Madam Chair, move approval.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer with a second by Commissioner Ehrman. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then there is just a couple things under informational I wanted to point out. We do have a proclamation designating April 2020, or April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day. So we just want to encourage everybody to become better committed to the greater causes such as recycling education, water conservation, and food waste prevention, which this shredding event fits right into that. Also want to point out that we are doing some things for the celebration of Earth Week. On Monday, April 22nd, there'll be Volunteer Day at the Holstrom House. Tuesday, April 23rd, there's going to be a talk about powerful pollinators at the IG Center. Wednesday, Commissioner Fleischer, I know this is going to be right up your alley, eco yoga. So you can go out to Jones Pier and try your hands at some yoga in a lovely environment. Thursday, April 25th is Changing Landscapes, just talking about different landscape options and habitats that we have here in Indian River County. And then Friday, April 26th is Movie Time at the Brackett Library, where they'll be hosting some eco-themed movie events. So I would encourage everybody to go out, celebrate Earth Day. Remember, we only have one Earth, so let's do what we can to protect it. And then in conjunction, this is a whole theme.
It got a little shaded yesterday, too.
It did get a little shaded. Did
Madam
anybody?
Chairman, can I interject?
Yeah.
Since I've been here on the commission, it's amazing how many things that Commissioner Fleischer's really into that.
I know, he is a renaissance
I've been here a
man.
long time.
He's a renaissance man, the
Had
yoga, the sports. And it did get shaded yesterday. I had my,
Yeah, I did.
I had my glasses. I did not burn my retinas out, so we're all good
Didn't
there.
get the full effect, but
No, but it was really cool, whoever, if anybody got to see the eclipse. And then April is also Water Conservation Month. So in keeping with the whole Eco Earth Day theme, please make sure that you are conserving water. Consider xeriscape landscapes, water-wise ground cover, succulents, and other plants that thrive in drought conditions. Also, make sure you don't have any leaky faucets and are otherwise wasting water, and conserve on the irrigation. And the wonderful thing about Florida is we have lots of native plants that are very good at conserving water or not needing water. So please take advantage of those things. Other than that, I will stop my random spiel on that, but Earth Day, Water Conservation Week, Commissioner Fleischer and I will be out at yoga at Jones Pier. Come join us, and we'll go from there.
okay.
So, commissioners, with that, moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish?
Madam Chair, thanks for doing that, because unfortunately, Area 7 does not get the attention that it truly deserves.
It does.
And you went through that entire area that needs no vote, but needs to be stated.
We had some cool things on there
Quite
this
thorough.
month. Yeah, I try. Consent agenda. Anybody wishing to pull anything from the consent? Yes, Commissioner Moss.
I'd like to pull 8I.
8I.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to pull 8H.
8H. Okay. Anybody else?
How about 8X?
8X. I feel like I need to pull something just to be in the club here. Commissioner Fleischer, you need to pull anything?
No,
All right, anybody from the public?
Well, 8X is being pulled already.
8X is being pulled, yep. Anybody from the 8X? All right, that's already pulled. Anybody else? 3 X's, we got it. All right. Commissioners, if there's nothing else, what is your?
Madam Chair, move approval as amended.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And if it's okay with everybody, we'll just take these in order. So Commissioner Lohr, I think you're up first with 8H, insurance renewal.
Yes, ma'am, this is just for the board and the community's information, that obviously we have to renew our self-insurance fund and our property casualty insurance each and every year. And I just want the public to know that after evaluating our insurance needs countywide, our rates are going up over 3%. Not uncommon to most of us whose homeowners insurance are going up. So I want the public to know that your insurance for your county buildings and liability is going up 3%.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately.
Right.
All right, commissioners' comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Lohr, did you want to make a motion?
Sure.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Lohr, the second by Commissioner Ehrman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to 8I, request for approval of the Third Amendment to the amended and restated facility lease agreement, Jackie Robinson Training Complex. Commissioner Moss.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This requests in part that we waive the county's procedural requirements for bids, which I'm opposed to doing that, and this is the third time we've been requested to do this. I voted against it February 9th in 2021 and July 12th in 2022. So I will not be voting in favor of this, and I'll leave it to someone else to move it forward, should one wish.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
can I ask the Deputy County Administrator if, what is the purpose, origin, reason for the limitation that we're confronted with?
Yes, sir. Michael Zito, Deputy County Administrator. This is consistent with the pattern that we've established since 2019 under the amended and restated facility lease agreement. Due to our collaborative nature of partnering on these projects, there is mutual incentive for the MLB to engage in every aspect of competitive bidding. It's just they're able to do things in a more expedited fashion. And in fact, the reason we're here today is because their last bidding process generated a $257,000 surplus, which is the funds that we're asking you to shift today to a project that was discovered in the middle of the asbestos removal. So the program is working. It's just about completed. This is the county's last obligation, other than the one that is mentioned in the agenda item, which is a oversight of a roof repair that we'll mutually endeavor to perform and cooperate on that funding as well. So with that, I would recommend approval.
And as I recall, many years ago, when this relationship was established, it was designed so that they would be the managing entity, and we would have a shared responsibility, and they would be selecting the contractors that would to get the job done because they are in that business, correct?
They are, and quite frankly, the gravity of the projects out there are not something that we could just absorb in-house. We have a challenge to complete our own projects, and so this methodology works very well, and it does ensure pricing and quality that we're used to in the 5-year
And as you
performance.
pointed out, it saved funding in the last, it provided.
Yes,
for a
this is no
surplus
new
of
funding. This is just shifting,
$150,000 on the last
shifting
one.
surplus savings from the bidding process on the asbestos project.
Thank you.
Just to clarify for the community, MLB is Major League Baseball, and they're in the sports business, not the construction business. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Anybody from the public? Commissioner,
Madam Chair, motion to approve.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer with a second by Commissioner Ehrman. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss dissenting. With that, we'll move on to 8X, request approval to bid Gifford Elevated Storage Tank Rehabilitation, IRCDUS, project ID I'm not going to go into. It's long.
Madam Chairman, I just want to
Yep, go ahead.
let Sean, are we doing X?
Yes, X. Go ahead. You're good.
I just wanted Sean to speak on it,
Okay.
as to what we're doing here.
What's that?
Just want you to speak on it and what we're doing.
Okay,
here.
sure.
We'll
Sean
give
Leesky,
an
Director of
overview.
Utilities. What we've got going and what we're proposing here is the Gifford Elevated Storage Tank. We had a report done by Kimley Horn that showed that there was some structural deficiencies associated with the tank. And in order to do some rehabilitation, we're estimating a little bit over $500,000 to do that rehabilitation to ensure the tank is stabilized and able to be utilized, more so as a cellular carrier tower, if you will. The tank right now is no longer really being utilized by the utility, and after the repairs are complete, the plan would be to turn it over to either the Public Works Department or Parks Department for long-term O&M of the tank for continued use as a cellular tower and as a landmark to the community. I mean, it's a landmark for the Gifford community and to continue utilizing that as a landmark for that community. But in order to kind of secure that tank and to keep it to a point where it's not going to potentially fall over or be blown over, we do need to do these repairs to continue that, to keep that tank secure.
That's all I got. I would agree with Sean. I agree with staff's approval on this. I think it's something that we need to keep and use as we can. And I like the idea of turning it over to Public Works for that purpose. So with that, I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
And one thing, just to clarify, I do know that Dan Russell, our IT director, is also looking and working with the cellular carriers to help offset some of those costs. And I believe we actually may have already gotten a commitment from one of the carriers, Verizon, for a certain amount of money. It's not necessarily going to cover the full cost of those repairs, but should help to offset the cost of some of that.
And second with another comment.
Is that a second to the motion?
Second to the motion with an additional comment.
Go ahead.
And again, you and I have discussed this in great lengths as far as the utility of the water tower. I'm grateful, and this is very important, to maintain this iconic structure. Again, we have a cell tower as well, but it is very important to the citizens in Gifford, and rightfully so. We've worked hard to get it labeled, marked, and conditioned over the years. I just was a little challenged that we couldn't add the utility end of it to the scenario as it could be a working product. Your explanation, and I just wanted the public to know that as far as I understand, the consultants were clear about it as far as the utility. And hearing from you as a director, again, it's not feasible. It's really, it's handing a cup of water to where a vat is needed. And you have other resources to ensure that there is ample availability for public water without the use of the tower. So it's going to be filled with something so that it can be maintained for weight and stability, but that is where it ends. It will not be a utility asset.
Correct. Yes, I mean, it needs to be filled with something to ensure that during hurricanes, and there's no, the hurricane wind can uplift something, and so you need enough water in that tower to ensure that it's got enough weight to kind of keep it stabilized during high wind events. And so there will be something placed in it, whether it's water or another material at this point. We still haven't made that final decision, but there will need to be some sort of material placed on the inside of that tower to keep it stabilized during hurricane events.
Well, I'll say thank you to, from a grateful community.
Thank you. Anybody else on the dais wishing? Okay, sir, you wanted to make a comment? Welcome.
Thank you. Tom Sullivan, 4186 West 16th Square. I was going to not agree with everybody. I don't think it's a wise use of money. We're talking about 500,000 is 559,000. It seems like a lot of money. And when I've been here, I've seen some other people turned down in the nature of, some of the people that wanted drug rehabilitation money turned down. I look at it, as an icon. I don't know if it's an iconic landmark. I was here when some of the gentlemen from Gifford spoke about it, and I was hoping some of the gentlemen would be here today and feel that that money was being wisely spent. I do think in the future you're going to have some upkeep problems, so you're going to have continued maintenance. I do think if you declare it a historic landmark, you'll even have more problems because then you'll have to fix it in a manner that's fitting to be a historic landmark. I think it's outlived its life. It's a water tower. I think the park, which is adjacent to a school, presents another problem. We're all familiar with this TikTok junk that goes on. My fear is that as we abandon this tower, and I'm not saying when it's not serviced regularly, that some of those middle schoolers will tend to do something that we wouldn't want them to do. I understand the significance of the tower, but I think a pocket park at the rate we're growing in that area in particular might serve the needs of that community better, similar, John, to what's done at the Hosey Schuman Park, a little pocket park that serves a little local community. That was my thought. I just don't, sometimes when these things come up, I don't understand the decision-making process that goes into it. Sometimes I think it's like, I feel this is the right thing, and we jump into it rather than having inputs. Already we know this is going to cost $560,000. It's a water tank that has its life is over. These things, and these things are going to cost money to maintain. In the event of a storm or an accident, the people realize the middle school is right next to it. Their sport fields are adjacent to it. If they want to expand the sports field, which I think would be a much greater use of that land than someone looking at the tower, because, you know, and I agree with the historic aspect of it, but I think we can honor that in a different way. I just think you're putting yourself in a position where not only are you going to be spending $560,000, by the way, that's an initial estimate bid, but you're going to be spending a lot more when those bids come in, and then you're going to spend a lot more in the future to maintain it. And I think you can do something that's much more fulfilling to the community and satisfying to the people and to the next generation, rather than saying we have to maintain that water tank. It is not going to be free. That was my point. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Fletcher.
again, once again, the water tower is not just a iconic symbol. It is something that the citizens have grown with. It's a landmark, a local landmark, not a national landmark, not a historical site. However, those objects on top of the tank provide for a very reasonable source of revenue, as it's the highest point in the geographic area for some miles. Since we have height restrictions on our buildings, that water tower was built significantly higher, and it is a very sought-after product for the cellular providers, so much so that a cellular provider has stepped up to the plate, and we are now getting a commitment to offset the cost of this development.
Okay. I was not aware of that. I didn't see that anywhere in print, and I didn't see the future inflows of cash. So
Yeah.
I really don't know the balance sheet, you know. You obviously have a little more information.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, did you want to say something?
Good morning, Commissioners. Anthony Brown, 4159 57th Court, Vero Beach. It's ironic that other people speak for the citizens of Gifford, who I've born, bred, and raised in the Gifford community. I've watched the Gifford community shrink from here where we stand now, which is Spillway, i.e. Booker T. Washington subdivision, where the Gifford sign was out by the Ups building, moving north, all the way to the Winter Beach Canal. Now the census tract is from 43rd Avenue to the railroad tracks, where you now have North Vero Beach, which as a kid I played in crab. We used to get crab claws that big, where the hospital, where Indian River Boulevard. We are constantly letting our history being lost, stolen, forgotten, and oftentimes altered. This it is iconic, irregardless to what some other people say, because I've grown, I've watched it. It has not been a hazard to Indian River County. It has not been a hazard to Gifford community. It has been something that we take pride in, and people say, where is Gifford? Look for the water tower. It's representative of us and what's left. We don't have the Gifford High School. We don't have the Gifford Elementary School. We don't have the businesses. We don't have any of the assets that we had as I grew up in this community. I remember Commissioner Wheeler one day sitting on that dais saying, Gifford may not be a municipality, but moving forward, this commission gonna treat it as a municipality. We don't ask for much. We pay our taxes, we go along, we interject, we get in these rooms, we try to negotiate, we try to have relationships, we try to honor the money and help you be good students of the monies of Indian River County. But in these instances, as the utilities director say, some of the cost is going to be offset. So let's stop looking at numbers and looking at a community who has been displaced, who has been minimized, and are only asking you to let that tower stay there with the words GIFFORD on them. I appreciate you and thank you and hope you'll do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, anybody else? Commissioners, there is a motion by Commissioner Ehrman with a second by Commissioner Fletcher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we will move on to public discussion items. Our first item is a request to speak from Siobhan McGordy of the State Attorney's Office regarding Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here last month. I did have laryngitis, so I apologize. So I just wanted to share that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, along with many other awarenesses, and we're doing an event for survivors. It's going to be in all the counties. It's through our sexual assault response team, which is compiled of law enforcement, state attorneys, anyone in the community that works with survivors of sexual assault, where we come together and work on how we can better serve survivors in the area and to make sure that they're heard, they know what's going on, and that they have their rights upheld. So on April 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the courthouse here in Indian River County, we'll be having a survivor empowerment walk, where we'll be having signs of empowerment that will be walking along the signs of where the courthouse is, and that's a way for survivors to share their stories, take back their power, reclaim what happened to them. And then at the end of that, we'll be having an opportunity for someone to speak. They can share their story. It could be a supporter for a message of support. It could be anything, a poem, a story, a quote. And then after that, we'll be having a candlelight vigil. So we'll be having a moment for survivors who have been affected in our area, because last year our program alone in the 4 counties served 1,063 survivors of sexual assault. And we want everyone to know that we're here, that what happened to them is not their fault, and we just want them to know that it's okay, and we're here for them.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is a request to speak by Jay Kalmbach. So I apologize if I butchered that, regarding the Serene Mobile Home Park code enforcement issues. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today. I am Joe Kalmbach. I'm a 70-year-old retired but still licensed Florida attorney, and I reside at Serene Mobile Home Park, located at 810 8th Street here in Vero Beach, Indian River County. I rise to speak about a humble issue, I think, given all that I've heard this morning. But it's an important issue. It's attached to an issue of due process, notice and an opportunity to be heard. The main issue is, I prepared my remarks and timed them, but I'm going to try to be briefer than that. The issue involves 6 vacant lots on an old mobile home park whose beginnings started in 1971. And for all of that time, 4 of the 6 vacant lots have never had a house on them. And that is at the corner of Old Dixie Highway and 8th Street. In any event, a year ago, infrastructure for RVs, campers, and motor coaches began to be installed. It was difficult to determine this because the permits do not accurately describe the work actually being done. In any event, I traveled downtown for the first time in my life to Community Development Department and spoke to the planner of the day, who happened to be Andy Sobchak, now the director of the department. And I asked him if RVs, campers, and motor coaches were allowed in Serene Mobile Home Park. And I was told unequivocally, no, the property's not zoned for that. The property's zoned commercial heavy, that the property would have to be rezoned and a new site plan issued, and all that would require notice and an opportunity to be heard. Under Section 800.05, letters have to be sent to the homeowners, notices have to be posted on the property, and a hearing before this board must be held, and we must receive a notice of that. So I repeated that request to Patrick Murphy, another planner, and was told the same thing several months later. 48 hours ago, or 2 business days ago on Thursday, I learned that an application for administrative approval is a process that exists. And that was the first time I heard about it. On Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, an application for administrative approval was filed with Indian River County. So I looked up administrative approval and discovered that all of the due process requirements of Section 800.05 do not exist for that. In other words, the elderly residents of Serene and the surrounding community will not know that the change in use is about to take place. According to the administrative code, the application for administrative approval is designed for small changes, like a change of a restaurant, according to the website, changing a retail space to a restaurant, not for something major as changing the use of the property. Obviously, that would affect values of the homes already there, including mine. And another important point is all of the residents are elderly. Some of them are handicapped, and some of them live part-time in faraway states like Wisconsin, Rhode Island, with no ability to learn without a letter that their property rights are about to be changed. In sum, government in the sunshine works best. Hiding things never has a good outcome. The tenants and residents and homeowners in Serene deserve due process. One of the few entities in this county that has both the authority and the responsibility to ensure due process other than a federal judge is this commission. So please help us. Please ensure that we receive due process, fair notice, and an opportunity to be heard before the change in use of the property occurs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, next item is a public notice item. Mr. DeBrawl. I believe that's you.
Raising again.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill DeBrawl, County Attorney. On March 20, 2024, the Solid Waste Disposal District will hold a second special call meeting for the Solid Waste and Recyclables Collection Service, RFP 2024-020, on Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. And I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. All right, before we move on to our next item, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Right. Call the meeting back to order. Next item is departmental matters. Office of Management and Budget, 12F1, Children's Services Funding Allocation for fiscal year 2024-25. Welcome.
Good morning. Ruth Bomarito, Senior Budget Analyst. Each year, the Board of County Commissioners approves of funding allocations for children's services. The amount is then allocated to the applicants based upon recommendations of the Children's Service Advisory Committee, CSAC. On May 17, 2022, the board approved changes to the CSAC ordinance, which increased the maximum millage cap to 0.2500 mils, up from the previous cap of 0.125 mils. On March 7, 2023, the Board of County Commissioners elected to keep the millage rate at 0.1250, or 1/8 of a mil, to fund the children's services programs for the fiscal year 23-24, which provided $2,773,383 in funding. On April 2nd, 2024, CSAC recommended a 10% increase above the current millage rate, which equates to a 23.6% increase over the current funding level, an increase of $654,518. This would result in a total budget allocation of approximately $3,455,635. The county administrator recommends the board approve funding for children's service agencies at the current 0.125 millage rate, which would generate $3,149,351 in funding for fiscal year 24-25. This amount provides a 13.6% increase, or $376,148 additional dollars when compared to the current year's funding. And now Cindy Emerson will now speak on children's services.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Emerson.
Hi, first and foremost, I just want to thank the commissioners for your steadfast support for children and families in the community. You've been incredible stewards of taxpayer money, and we've been able to hit over 18,000 touch points as a result of the funding that has gone towards children's services just in the 22-23 year. And I remember last year, while I wasn't a member of the county as an employee, I did watch this presentation, and I heard very clearly that there were things that the commissioners wanted in place in order to create more trust and transparency and fidelity around children's services. And then just 8 months ago, I joined the Indian River County family and then became the director of community services. And I stand before you very proud of the accomplishments we've been able to make in just a very short amount of time. And you know, despite putting in a lot of rigorous systems and structures, we really won't see the aftermath of this until after this current grant cycle. So in 3 years, we're really going to be able to show an incredible return on investment from the money that was put into the programs provided through CSAC. So I just want to go through some of the things that were requested on behalf of the staff of Children's Services. So one of the things that we were tasked to do was really increase public transparency. And so I think we've done a great start at really building trust by shining light on the programs and the impact that's being made. We did an aggressive #IRC success campaign. While this doesn't only focus on children's services, we're also able to show the tremendous improvements we've made with veteran services and our public libraries, as well as all the human services that are supported under the Community Services Department. We also updated our website. What you will find is the committee and subcommittee members, our meeting dates, agendas, minutes, ordinance, the guidebook, which has been revised for the first time since 1997, as well as our social media push out. You will see a public dashboard that has been implemented to showcase program descriptions, the budget, anticipated research-based outcomes, and it's all publicly available, demonstrating our stewardship to taxpayer money and our commitment to supporting our families and community. We also developed a GIS map with support of the IRC GIS team that delivers an interactive opportunity for families to see the current location of programs that are funded through CSAC, their contact information, what their program outcomes are anticipated to be, as well as the areas of support, which also help shine light on some areas within our community where there may be, we call it a desert of program options. In particular, noting like the northwest region of Indian River County really needs a lot more programs to be able to amp up to the level of support we're providing elsewhere in the community. And so because of this, we've also been able to increase fidelity measures by updating the guidebook, addressing the missing attendance and dosage requirements that should have been in the contract that are now in place, adding systemized, accountable program site visits. If there's any question on whether programs are doing the work, the site visits are shining light on the real intensive and research-based interventions that are happening on the site of these programs. Also, we have implemented a scoring rubric along with a request for proposal so that our grant subcommittee, which is made up of 15 members that are volunteers, but experts from the community, they're able to score based on what the needs are in our community. We've also addressed our funding priorities and, as you know, tripled the number of meetings that we're having from just 4 a year at 1 hour to now 12 a year at almost 2.5 hours each, really digging in deep. One of the beautiful things about CSAC is it really is a microcosm of our community. There's a lot of diverse points of view within the committee. 15 members that are some appointed and some voted in, and it allows for really rich discussion. All voices can be heard and all opinions can be heard, but we follow the process, and I think that that is a real testament to the work that each of you have done to make sure that it's really showing the spectrum of different beliefs within our community. So I want to just touch on the needs assessment really quickly because we've been able to save taxpayers $50,000 by managing this internally using the research-based patch framework. Experts from our field, including some that are here today, Hope Woodhouse, Carrie Lester, who really can dive into the data and research around substance awareness and abuse, Dr. McMahon, who manages accountability and research for the school district, sat through our needs assessment and was one of the voices in the room, along with Carissa Bolden, who's a mental health counselor, and Michael Kent, who we know has been just a major supporter through his efforts as a spokesperson for United Way, but also a member of the board of the hospital district. So the experts are in the room. We looked at multiple sources of information that are public available. Over 200 different unique data points were looked at, getting down to and honing into 3 new funding priorities from CSAC. And these are all done with an emphasis on early intervention and really building parent capacity through all of them. So that's no longer a standalone focus. It really is embedded into every single program that's going to come for funding in this new grant cycle. And here's just some of the research-informed decision-making data that we looked at. So I want you to notice that under health and wellness, we were looking at prenatal care research. We were looking at infant mortality and what that says as a key measure of our nation's health, recognizing that that reflects the socioeconomic conditions of a community. We also were looking at youth development programs, knowing that when students participate in these programs, 42% of them are less likely to drop out of school, knowing that programs under Nurturing Families and Communities that support families with parenting classes, visiting sites of homes, family counseling, all we see as a result of that is incredible growth and positive outcomes for our children, which ends up becoming a financial benefit for our community. It pays back to us. What we're really investing in is creating tomorrow's future law-abiding taxpayers. And so success in school and life is one of the other strong priorities that we have based on our needs assessment. And what we know is that when we have really strong early childhood education, we can reduce the initiating of drug use by youth by nearly 45.8% and also reduce the likelihood of them skipping school. All of this is grounded in research and what we use to make our decisions. For anyone out in the community wanting to understand where we get this research, here's some more research around these 3 priority areas that we honed in on and really focused on. This is going to be available to the public if anyone would like to see all the research that was done in terms of our needs assessment. But what it really comes down to is the return on investment. What we know is that $1 invested now, and so I have just a few examples of some of the return on investment that we can anticipate thanks to your forward thinking and commitment to family and children. So strong evidence suggests that investments that reduce poverty and direct resources to very young children have particularly high benefits. In total, analysts estimate that long-term, these can return a $10 to every dollar spent. And so this proactive opportunity with prevention and intervention in place, really building up families and creating sustainable change is going to pay us off dividends in the future by having these law-abiding taxpayers of tomorrow then participating back into our community. What we know under health and wellness is that the burden of not providing opportunities for prenatal care really is not cost beneficial for us. It is estimated that premature births alone costs us $51,600 per case. We also know that changing the path of just one at-risk youth, that's a 14-year-old, is a societal cost of $3.2 to $5.8 million based on research. So just one life changed has an incredible, significant cost benefit to our community. And research by Nobel Prize winning economist James Heckman showed that every dollar invested in early childhood alone is a return between $4 and $16 back to our community. So really, you're being the strongest stewards of taxpayer money by having these preventative programs in place. Here's some other research that really shows the return on investment that we can share with taxpayers and our community, because this preventative support that you're doing right now is really just money in the pocket of the future of our community. We were really blessed because we were able to show over 18,000 touch points as a result of children's services programs that were implemented in 22-23. That has been out for the community, public information now on our website since January. And I just want to say that in 2022, TaxWatch released a research-based article on how childcare impacts the state's economy in Florida and shapes our workforce. And they found that quality childcare and early learning programs are essential for keeping our parents in the workforce. And so I just want to, again, thank you for putting such an emphasis on that, because so many of the programs that are funded provide after-school care, provide enrichment opportunities, provide summer learning, most of which at a low cost or no cost to our parents that are in the workforce or that are stricken with poverty and need support. And many of these programs that do require a cost offer scholarship opportunities for our most needy residents to ensure that every kid has access to opportunities. Just some highlights to share that we've already gone through, but just I think that you should wear as a badge of honor as a commissioner, because it's because of your support we were able to make these significant impacts. Because of your support, over 646 children participated in reading enrichment. Over 73% had a 10+ % gain when it comes to reading. Because of your support, 484 children were able to participate in targeted support and tutoring in all 4 core subject areas. What we know is when students are proficient, then they're on track to be successful taxpayers of tomorrow. And that 99% of the 143 children that were in programs for prevention and intervention remained free of enrollment in the Department of Juvenile Justice. And we do know what a cost that a child entering into the juvenile justice system costs our taxpayers. And so to be able to prevent that cost, I think, is really significant. We've also had programs that have supported building capacity around our families. Now, while this was a standalone in the past, this is a non-negotiable expectation of every program in the future. We're not here to do a one and done. We're really here to help build up our parents and our families and create sustainable growth within them. But 275 parents, as a result of the 22-23 funding, we're able to get support with healthcare education and increased access to service. And really, we believe that parents are the backbone of this community, and we really trust them in supporting their children. And 1,273 parents received guidance on how to be their child's first teacher. With over 7,000 touch points on mental health and crisis recognition, I think we can see that there's a reduction in ACEs for the future, really is also a cost benefit to our community. We participated for the first time in the Florida Children's Week, and as a result of that, we had an opportunity to go out into the community and really engage with the youth. I thank all of you that participated in the different events that took place that week, whether it was helping share the teen survey, whether it was going out and reading at our public library or in our early learning programs. I think the culminating event at the end of that week was really the true testament to the growth and change happening. And while I love data, I'm a very data-driven person, I also think that the data doesn't tell the full story of the real strength that happens when we wrap around the children in our community. Being able to hear Cameron Barnes from Crossover Mission share the story of how the mentorship through that program has changed his life and his pathway. Being able to hear Nancy Carval talk about how Healthy Start has helped her improve her parenting and really create the successful foundation for the future of her children. Hearing Joseph Harrington talk about how the pre-apprenticeship program that he was involved in has now shaped a career pathway. You know, and everyone in the community was invited to attend that. And I just think that hearing those stories of success really cements that this is working. And then Jasmine Taylor, I know we got to hear the Youth of the Year from this year today. Jasmine Taylor was the Youth of the Year last year for Boys and Girls Club. And I think we can all feel that these youth, I know she's just 17 years old today, but they have something really special and powerful to contribute to our community. And because of the programs we support, we're now able to encourage them and inspire them. What's really great though is we're not here to be the experts in the room. We're here to support the agencies that are implementing the programs. And we're creating sustainable change by not telling them what to do, but giving them the professional development to increase their research-based strategies and really have performance outcomes that are bonded and based in research. And so as a result of our professional development that we have initiated this year, we have focused on data collection and analysis. We had sessions on budget planning and fiscal responsibility. I think you can all agree that that's a good one for us to focus on. We had evidence-based program designs and evaluations. And what we're going to see as a result in this upcoming RFP process is stronger outcome measures than we've ever seen before. So while we can really wear a badge of honor for the 18 touch points we had previously, these new, really stronger developed outcome measures are going to create even more growth than we've ever seen, which is really inspiring, and I'm really proud to be a part of this work. We had drop-in discussions allowing agencies to come in and share their program outcome measures and build off of each other, creating mentorship and sustainable future growth. What you can anticipate is May 7th, the entire community can anticipate our mid-year report going public, another new public dashboard where you'll be able to see just halfway through the year where each program is in accordance to their outcome measures and their dosage, number of children they're serving or families. And the RFP timeline is, we're right in the middle of it. In fact, this Friday, the application window closes. One unique difference this year is the grant subcommittee now with their scoring rubric has access starting as of the opening of the window, which was on May 15th to now. We are going in and already having them pre-score based on their application. And so that's really inspiring because they're getting to devote the hours and hours that we know these volunteers are putting in to do this work. Just a few other things that I want to say. Woo. That's okay. Well, I'll just jump into it. We do have some priorities for the upcoming year, and I'm really excited to share with you what our CSAC staff has up their sleeves. First is strategic planning. So based on the needs assessment, thank you. Based on the needs assessment, what you'll start seeing is goal setting happening for each of those areas that we're focusing in on. So like I said, over the next 3 to 5 years, you will be able to know exactly what the return on investment is. We'll be able to celebrate together, a reduction in the number of children that are entered into the juvenile justice system. We'll be able to share together the growth that we're seeing academically and in support of our community. We're also developing a community forum for each of those needs assessment areas. We want to bring the experts, not just from our local area, but experts from the state of Florida, to share research, outcomes, and best practices with our agencies who are developing programs. We also will be expanding our professional development, focusing on 2 areas. One, diversification of funds. We want our agencies to be able to diversify their outreach so that they can scale up their programs with no additional cost burden on our taxpayers. And 2, the most important part is board development. What we really want to see is that people in the community that have an active passion and want to see improvement join the boards of our agencies and help support them. And we're planning on pushing out a monthly newsletter so you can really see the work in action and the success stories, so you can anticipate that in the future. And finally, if you have concern, if you are a member of the community and you feel like one of these programs isn't doing enough, I implore you to actively reach out to the agency and consider joining their board. If you want stronger outcome measures, join the board of one of our nonprofits. They could not be more open and accessible as far as showing people the work that's being done. And I really do think that when you see the systems that are in place and the research that so many of these agencies have put in to support very specific niche areas in our community, you'll see that many of them are leading experts in the field and have really dug in deep to make sure that what they're offering is the strongest program possible. And then now I really will say the final thing. I'm really excited that with the needs assessment, we've now put an emphasis on developing not just college-ready students, but career-ready students. And through the new needs assessment, we're gonna see more programs focused in on carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, forklift operating, high skill, high wage jobs that we really need our local citizens to be employed in. And because of the expansion with the needs assessment, I'm hoping to see that happen in the north area of our county, as it currently doesn't exist under our previous focus areas. So now, any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions, commissioners, for Cindy? No?
I don't have any right now. I'll have some comments
Okay.
later on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners. Anybody have any comments or questions at this point, or do you want me to open it up? Everybody seems very quiet. So I will open it up to the public. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please come to, just a few ground rules. Please come to either podium, state your name and address for the record. We'll go back and forth, so you're welcome to queue up behind each one, and we'll go from there. Welcome.
Hi, Hope Woodhouse, 199 Island Creek. First of all, thank you, Cindy, for that presentation in terms of showing what the impact can be, and thank you for hiring Cindy. As a person who's been around and at this podium a lot in the past, she's made, and her staff have made a huge difference. But I guess what's frustrating me is I've been at this podium and the county commissioners have made commitments in the past, and the problem is they haven't been lived up to, other than Cindy. In 2017, the commissioners, some of you were here, but most of you were not, agreed to meet the 1999 agreement of 0.125 mil, or 0.00125. It took 7 years from 2017 to actually get to 0.125. In 2022, we had an ordinance that said that we would gradually go from 0.125 to 0.25. Well, we finally got to .125 last year, and staff is recommending we stay at .125 this year, even though the CSAC committee recommended a 10% increase. So I guess, what's the point of making a commitment if it's not followed through on? I guess to me, I guess she's good cop, I'm bad cop. I wish that we would start the process of living up to the commitment. And then the last comment I have is, what can be more important than the children of our county? They're the future of the county. And based on the mistakes of the past, we are living now in a community where you can't hire qualified people. You can't hire therapists, you can't hire teachers. Why does Johns Island have to go to Eastern Europe to hire people every year? If we had invested in our children 25 years ago, I guess that would be 1999 as what was agreed, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in. So I just ask you to live up to the commitment that was made by the commissioners in writing in 2022. That's it.
Thank you. Next.
Still morning. Good morning. Susan Meal, 130 Island Cottage Lane. Heavens knows no one wants to suggest that our children's charities aren't needed. Unfortunately, they are, and we continue to have a need. And actually, I go back to 1990 and I look at the resolution that created the agency, and I see that not only is an inventory of our current services a needs assessment, there's also the directive to plan for services to meet unmet needs. And so I look back almost 35 years and I say to myself, so what's changed? And one thing we know is that the amounts of money we are putting toward these programs has greatly increased. Many of the programs have greatly increased their sophistication to the point where they do have nice staffs and good development directors. And a number of these organizations do put out a lot of data and research. And one wonders, but how much have the problems really changed or been improved? We know that the nature of the problems in 35 years have obviously changed, but have we reduced some of those issues that we find ourselves in? And as a person that's reviewed educational practices locally throughout the state and also the nation, I know that there are core heart causes of some of these problems we find in education or in our communities and our youth. So you can address the symptoms, but if you don't get to the actual cause of the problem, you sometimes are wasting your time and money, or you're putting a Band-Aid on it. And what I suggest is what a Gifford leader told me a few years ago when he said, Susan, let's face it, it's mostly the parent problem, and not that the parents are the problem, but their lack of interest or their lack of even existence is key. So what are we doing to reduce single-parent families? And what are we doing to reduce the root causes of these children with increasing mental health issues, increasing bullying and violent behavior, dropping out and not being able to read, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing we find is that our interventions early on to make sure kids are reading by 3rd grade are great, but what are we doing when they're getting to 7th, 8th, and 9th grade? Are they still reading and concentrating? And another thing that came up just now is the encouragement to go into the trades as opposed to college, which is great. I would suggest that the emphasis on that action is placed at the school district level and not on children's nonprofit charities unless it's a byproduct of some other program. I would suggest that rather than greatly increasing the dollars going there, the good stewardship of taxpayer dollars would be to see if these new and wonderful databases and evaluation processes, et cetera, are actually working, rather than just repeating what it appears to we have done somewhat over the last 35 years, and that is grant more money to the grantors without solid and concrete results to be seen. So the other thing I have to say, and I've said all along, is that a wonderful increase in tax revenues based on the increased value of residences comes at also the time of skyrocketing home insurance costs, homeowners insurance, and skyrocketing monies for gas and food and everything else, as we know we're facing. So the middle to low income taxpayers are suffering at great odds, and so rather than use their tax dollars on something like dramatically increasing because of this windfall, I suggest we be more prudent with those dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Irene Caldwells with Substance Awareness Center. I'm here to talk on behalf of Carrie Lester, who is a member of CSAC and our executive director. As a member of Substance Awareness Center, I can attest to the difficulty of attracting and retaining staff here in our county. We had a position that was open since June of last year, trying to get a counselor, a master's level trained counselor without license into our agency, and that person started yesterday. And it wasn't with lots of recruiting. We increased the budget from $50,000 to $65,000 with a $3,000 bonus just to get a person. So we can attest to how hard it is to get really good qualified staff. I'd like to talk also as an individual homeowner. Oh, I forgot to give you my address, 5556 55th Terrace, excuse me. And so as an individual homeowner, I'm very appreciative of conservative stewardship and management. You know, nobody wants their taxes to go up exponentially. However, I'm not sure this is necessarily an exponential increase. When I compare our county with a similar county with the same demographics of Martin County, Martin County's Children's Services spends about $9 million a year, where this agency, and thank you, Cindy, for your great work, is asking for, I think, about $3 million. The other part I want the team to consider here is that the staffing funding for CSAC here is under $200,000 compared to $1 million in Martin County. And research says they are actually very well run too, but this organization here is just going leaps and bounds and doing outstanding things on a shoestring. So while I appreciate conservative fiscal responsibility, there's also such a thing as underfunding our youth and underfunding, which you've heard other people talk about, that we have grossly underfunded these youth programs for quite a while. So I ask you to reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner.
I just had a question.
Yeah.
As far as, it's my understanding that Substance Awareness actually returned some funding.
Yes, we did. We were given funding for hiring that youth counselor. We wanted to launch an adolescent because we've seen an exponential growth in youth becoming, having more mental health and more substance use issues. Because we weren't able to attract that staff until today, we felt it would have been irresponsible for us to hold on to part of the funding. So the funding that the CSAC had allocated for that staff, we were able to return and obtain the funding through other sources. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome. Excuse me.
Hi, I'm Miranda Swanson. I am the chair of the Children's Services Advisory Committee, and I'm also the health officer for the county. I would like to say that our committee has done phenomenal work over the last year. Our committees have done phenomenal work over the last year. We've sought to develop the infrastructure. We've done trainings with our agencies. Cindy and her team have built the evaluation and monitoring systems that we've so desperately needed. The needs assessment has been fantastic. And as we're about to embark on the strategic plan, there's just so much more to come. One of the previous speakers that came up was talking about the root problems and issues that our parents and our children are struggling with. Our agencies do that work. All of you came to the celebration that we had. You heard from so many of the agencies. The work is inspiring, and it's what our county needs. So if I have anything to say today, I believe in the investment in children's services, and I believe in the investment for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good morning, Board. Bob McParland, City of Sebastian. I sit on the CSAC committee as well. And, you know, I thought it was very fitting that in the beginning you were given the proclamations. You know, one is Child Abuse Prevention Month is April. I thought it was very important also the presentation to the boys and girls, their Youth of the Year, you know, which is one of the programs that is funded through the CSAC, as well as the crime victims' rights. You know, and again, half of violent crimes, as you had mentioned, Commissioner Fletcher, go unreported. And a lot of those crimes are affecting children. What the CSAC, I mean, Boys and Girls Club, I like to mention that one because there was a period about 15, 16 years ago where I was a single parent raising 2 small children. And if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls program and their after school and summer program, I don't know how I would have done it. I don't know how I would have managed working full-time and taking care of 2 small children on my own, but it was thanks to them and the mentorship that was learned out there. I started on the board, I was appointed because I worked for the Department of Children and Families, probably, well, not at the lowest point, but at the lowest point in 2012, 2013. And I was on that board that time for, it was about 3 years. And then it was when the community came forward to this board and, you know, the board said, hey, we challenge you. You raised $250,000. We'll match that $250,000. And then we will fund that $1/8 going forward. And the community came up with that like that. I wish I could come up with $250,000 that quickly. But they did. And it was the commission fully supported that. And then it was a couple of years ago we were going, and it was just this past last March where I came, and the recommendation from staff was to go 1/3 of the way and move from $1/8 up to $1/4. And it was said, let's take a pause. Let's see where we're at. And again, a lot of the people, there's several members here who have been on the board as long as I have, and we have always advocated for the staff, and we waited. And Cindy and Amy Rutherford and Leanne and Miss Maya, godsends for what they have done with this board within 8 months' time. You come into a meeting, it's way different than it used to be. And everything that they have in place, one of the things we've advocated for, I told this board in March, I said, I am committed to making this CSAC board the best it could possibly be. Whatever you want it to be. If you have any questions, any of this funding anywhere, concerns, because there were some concerns about certain groups, I says, if you want, you call me, I'll go in, I'll sit in, I'll monitor it. We are now, the requirements of being on the CSAC board, it's like no other committee, volunteer board that the county has or any of the municipalities. There's a lot of commitment that's involved. As Cindy had mentioned, the meetings, they're scheduled for being 2 hours. They're typically going 2.5 hours long. And then site visits to go out and actually see where these taxpayer dollars are going, making sure they are meeting what they said they would do, as well as that the number of kids that they say they're serving are there. We are counting. We are monitoring. All of this is in place. What I'm saying is, of course, I would like a lot more than 10%. You know, I was kind of probably the only one said, let's go 1/4 of the way. But I think 10% added on, that would bring it to, I guess I had an estimate here. It would actually be 0.1375 mils. And again, like you talk, yes, it's a lot more funding than has ever been done before. But as was mentioned earlier, the cost of everything has gone up as well. The $100 doesn't go the same it did last year. The same, what it costs to do paving of a road is not the same as it was last year or 2 years before. Last CSAC meeting, I wish you had all been there, because Dr. Moore gave a presentation on where the school district is at today. And again, we are sizable to Martin County, and Martin County spends almost 3 times as much per student than this county does. So this county is very conservative on the dollars. And as was mentioned with the Martin Children Services Council, which I am a member of that board, we spend less than a third of what they are. Imagine what we could do with a little bit more. But Dr. Moore, what he was showing, we exponentially, it's unbelievable what's being done. And I think that has to do with some of the nonprofits that the county board is supplementing. Again, it's not their entire budget, it's a portion of their budget. What they are doing in conjunction is making everything in leaps and bounds. I also, what was mentioned for Child Abuse Prevention Week over at St. Helens, the 93 flags which are representing children that died due to abuse and neglect from last year. I sit on the Child Abuse Death Review. I sit on the fetal infant mortality reviews that are happening. We are making strides, but this money is going towards reducing it. And yes, because I had heard it mentioned, we're talking only about 11 children, in fetal infant mortality. It's not just 11 children. Without that funding, what it does developmentally for all the other children, making them the best they can be and moving forward, as well as assisting those families and potentially bringing them out of poverty and making everything better. So I fully support, and if you can, to raise it 10%, what is the CSAC funding? And again, if there are any concerns about any of the programs, anything that's going on, you all have my number. I will go out anywhere, or was mentioned, to visit these programs yourselves and see what they are doing. And thank you. And thank you for the support of the money. I'm very hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next. Are you coming up? All right.
Good morning. Joe's smiling up there. Doug Demuth, 1804 East Sandpoint Place, Vero. Just start with a little Ronald Reagan quote. He said that the government is like a baby, that it's an alimentary canal with a voracious appetite on one end and very little responsibility at the other. And unfortunately, that's where we find CSAC today. As you know, I'm a member of the CSAC committee. I also serve as a vice president of the Taxpayers Association of Indian River County. And I'm here today to represent the TPA and make a statement approved unanimously by their board of directors on April 3rd, 2024. Providing additional money to CSAC before it addresses its duplicate funding problems, accountability issues, and before it has made provided clear solutions to many issues raised in its needs assessment, seems premature. Both the Board of County Commissioners and the public should be made aware of which organizations CSAC intends to fund, for what amounts, and for what the public should expect in return for it. Funding CSAC nonprofits without these details jeopardizes transparency and fiscal responsibility to Indian River County taxpayers. Approving funding before defined and detailed programs are presented to this body can lead to wasted taxpayer money and a let's put it this way, and a loss of support, public support. It is contrary to fiscal budgeting process norms in both public and private sectors. It is difficult to imagine any public or private entity providing funding without a clear, approved, detailed explanation of exactly what the funds will be spent on and the expected results for such expenditures. At present, granting CSAC funding without detailed root cause analysis resulting in specific solution actions backed by nationally recognized research allows CSAC nonprofits to define what they want to do and how they will do it, rather than CSAC directing their programs towards solutions and outcomes that meets the public needs. Before the Board of County Commissioners considers increasing CSAC funding for the next year, it should require CSAC staff to provide program-by-program requests for proposals outlining to nonprofits the solution steps it directs them to take to address each program mission statement. It should tally the program costs and bring the entire package to the attention of the Board of County Commissioners for review, discussion, and final budget sum determination with a program-by-program Board of County Commissioners vote. In this way, the taxpayers of Indian River County will have full program cost-benefit transparency. For these reasons, the Taxpayers Association recommends maintaining current dollar funding levels for the current year. Not millage, dollar. I think that's what, $2.7 million or something like that? And I'd like to bring, and on a personal note, having served with this committee for a while, I'd like to bring to your attention a number of things. Cindy mentioned one of them. We saved $50,000 on a needs assessment. However, the committee is planning to take that $50,000 and run that into new nonprofit spending. That is not normally something you would see in the private sector. If I did that, if I went to the board of directors at Hershey or Kraft or Nabisco or any of those locations and tried to pull that, I'd have been fired. I wouldn't be able to take something that was allocated for one item and then move that to capital spending or something else. Let's talk about funding for a second. There's plenty of opportunity within the current budget to redirect funding to the things that they believe would be necessary. Crossover Mission, for one, has hired, as you probably well know, a $180,000 a year fundraising guy. And then they come to us for over $100,000. Well, we're in effect paying for that $180,000 fundraiser. The invoice may not come to us, but we're paying for them. And then you also have the youth sailing program. You know, we're giving them $40,000 a year after they've been given $4 million through philanthropy in this community, and all the land they're going to need for their brand new club, that $4 million clubhouse by the city of Vero Beach. You would think that they would at least donate the $40,000 worth of time to teach kids to sail. We also have a ton of duplication. $400,000 of duplication with a hospital district that still remains undealt with. Indian River County School District, here's another good one. They are by law responsible for education throughout this county. And the superintendent has the ability to spend money on after-school programs, on summer programs, and even preschool programs by law. Frankly, those programs ought to be under his guidance, all of those programs. He ought to be asking for funds to address those programs and take them from CSAC, where the expertise in education does not exist. You know, it's an ad hoc committee. It is not, it's not staffed with educational experts. The school district is. And Dr. Moore ought to be given all the tools that he needs to be able to address the fact that for 4 years running, 40% of our third grade kids are not at reading level. And it gets worse later on, as Susan Mell mentioned. It drops off like a rock after that. So whatever we're doing just to even get to the 40% level just falls away later on. So in any event, I'd like to leave with one more thing. I've spoken with Commissioner Allure a couple of times. about CSAC and its history, and he's mentioned that CSAC was originally put together as a seed money organization, that it was supposed to help set up nonprofits who would eventually become subsistent on their own with philanthropy, or through philanthropy. Okay, we've gone a long way since that, and now we have folks up here demanding additional money, additional money, and additional money. What we need to do is start to put a clamp on that voracious appetite so we can get a lot more responsibility at the other end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Welcome.
Anthony Brown, 4159 57 Court, Vero Beach. I'm somewhat offended. We've heard a lot of inferences on this, that, but you're doing great service to our community. One question, have any of you, other than Commissioner Moss and Ehrman, seen the people who on the CSAC subcommittee, advisory subcommittee? Ladies and gentlemen, you got some awesome people in that room doing some awesome work. We're not being frivolous. We understand that we're being custodians of the coffers that you are responsible for. We're caught up in these different little innuendos that don't mean nothing, but when it comes to one question, and in the CSAC committee, I threw it out there, what is the impact of the dollars you're spending? You got people, I can pick anything. I can take the Hope Diamond and I can find fault in it. No disrespect. Miss Hope. We are the workers. If you want to tear something apart, it's easy. You can find fault in it. We tweaked it. Cindy Emerson and her staff came aboard. We tweaked the process. It's evolving to become better. It's evolving to do all the work that is necessary. Oh, the school district, and then I'm offended that we pick on certain entities within the scope of CSAC. You make emphasis on parents. You threw Gifford in the process. What that's got to do with the cost of beef? You throw parenting in. I'm the byproduct of a single parent, Air Force veteran, college person. Let's stop it. You are doing awesome work funding CSAC. Yes, it could use more money. Yes, it could do this. But don't sit in here and throw it away because some people got personal vendettas against the process. As Bob McFarland said and Ms. Woodhouse said, you know, we could up the ante a little bit, but that's you all's call. CSAC subcommittee, advisory subcommittee, our job is to get in that room and make the best of the dollars that you've given me. Even though if we come back, if something's left over, we're gonna put it. We're not operating in CSAC under the corporate structure. Please put that in your head. We already have one entity. If I can get in trouble, we got Cleveland Clinic, the corporate image. I look at the health department with Ms. Swanson. Instead of regulatory, it's about public health. You got to tweak these things to make them work for the people who need it the most. So when you're deliberating and trying to understand it, I want you to keep one word in your head. What is the impact of the money that the Indian River County Board of Commissioners is spending at CSAC? Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Peggy Jones. My address is 1565 56 Court. I'm currently the school board vice chair, and I'm speaking as an individual, not for the school board. I understand as my role as school board member, just like you, we need to be accountable to our taxpayers, and I take that very seriously. I just got back from the Vero Beach City Council, where they recognized us as an A school district, just like you did, and we were very appreciative. A lot of hard work. I was at the Taxpayers Forum last week, and one thing I remember saying is return on investment. And I know this relates to the school board, but this is a bigger picture. As far as extra money, we are allocated based on student enrollment, extra money. And I want you to think about this. Martin County receives an extra 38 million. I'm sorry, that's Brevard County. Martin County, 42 million, and St. Lucie County, about 57 million through their millage and taxes, through their sales tax. We receive about 14 million. They are a B school district, we are an A. And being an A school district, we know we always have to improve and we cannot be complacent. But one of the reasons we are an A school district is because of the support from this community and all of our nonprofits. I have served on some boards. I'm now on the United Way panel for evaluating some of the requests for the United Way. But the only reason is that we are an A school district because of this community and how much it cares. These nonprofits and all of the people on the boards, they are there for a very specific reason, to help our youth, to help our adults, because this is what makes a community so special. As far as the accountability, I did not like losing Cindy Emerson at the school district, but I know, and I know a lot of the people who serve on CSAC and are on those committees, they have very, very high expectations. They're not just gonna say, you get this because this. They have very, very high expectations, and they are also accountable to our students. One of the quotes I ended with at the forum, can't remember it exactly, but the most important thing my generation can do for the next generation is to make sure they put emphasis on the children, because we want them to be successful. So, you know, whatever decision you make, just think about that, because the most important issue is to make sure that our children are okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome.
Sorry, I have to read from prepared statement, otherwise I get too nervous. Good morning, I'm Bob Schlitt. I reside at 4340 62nd Terrace in Vero Beach. I currently sit on the Children's Services Advisory Committee, and I'm also the chairman of the Grant Subcommittee of CSAC. I'm here today to recommend that you approve an increase in the millage rate for CSAC by 10% more than the current rate. And thankfully, Bob McPartland did the math, so I don't have to do that. Other speakers have, or they will provide you with more information on the numbers and the dollars and the millage. My goal is to share with you some of the changes that I've seen during my time affiliated with CSAC. I've sat on the Grant Subcommittee for about 8 years and on CSAC itself for about 5 years. During that time, I can assure you that the grant recommendations made by the volunteer members of CSAC have never been haphazard or treated with anything other than thorough, honest reviews of the grant requests received over the years on behalf of the taxpayers of Indian River County. The difference between the historical past of CSAC and today is staffing and their inability, the prior staffing process, inability to follow up. Until 2+ years ago, you all know the exact date, the Board of County Commissioners had allocated one part-time employee, and the last one, who's still there, did a fantastic job, Leanne, whose job entailed the minimum that the county could get away with in allocating funds and collecting minimal data on results so that checks could be mailed out to agencies. And that was the way that CSAC had been set up and had been run for years. Last year, the County Commission said that we have to work through the planning process and begin to implement the actual changes before an increase in millage would be considered. Today's CSAC, thanks to many of you commissioners, is totally different. Today, the county staff is made up of 3 full-time and 1 part-time manager, and they're constantly in front of the agencies setting up professional development programs that help the agencies understand the importance of data collection, budgeting, best practices, and setting and achieving measurable outcomes. Today's CSAC staff, through the Human Services Department, is annually reviewing every program that is being funded through a systematic review of the agencies, staffing, delivery of services, and proper allocation of funds. Today's CSAC staff is regularly providing information to the citizens of Indian River County, keeping them informed of the services available to the children and families of the county with transparency. Today's CSAC staff has built objective scoring rubrics for both the grant funding process and the review process. This is all being done at a fraction of the cost that we see in surrounding counties. Today's board and grant subcommittee are made up of knowledgeable experts in all areas of children's services, including but not limited to law enforcement, judicial, hospital district, school district, concerned citizens, interested community members, and business people who want to see that the children of Indian River County have more opportunities than anywhere else. I believe that Indian River County has an opportunity to become a beacon for children's services, not just in our part of the state, but in the entire state. And we do it differently and less expensive than any other county. And I can get in with you about the history of how it all started, but believe me, it hasn't been mentioned today, but this only works if you step up and provide more reliable, stable funding for the children. Our experiment of the county itself, you, as opposed to a standalone taxing district, which is how most of the counties in the state who provide children's services funding do it on a standalone taxing district. And I think that's important for people to understand. We're different and we're better, I think. I don't want a separate children's services taxing district with its own bureaucracy and excessive expenses. The county commission needs to stand up and provide additional funding. The taxpayers of Indian River County don't need to spend the extra dollars on bureaucracy, bureaucrats, and buildings, like many of the counties in Florida already do with their standalone tax districts. You can go down to Martin County and you'll see a building almost as big as this, which is owned by the Children's Services Taxing District. It's ridiculous. We can do this as it's currently set up. You can do this. One of the biggest, but really not surprising, discoveries of the site visit process is how difficult it is for agencies to pay for the staff that they need to provide the top-level services that our children need and deserve. Staff has also let us know that they fully expect a much larger number of agencies to be requesting CSAC funding this year. We can't provide the additional funds our existing agencies need to properly staff their programs, and we can't help new agencies get started in their goal to help the children of the county if we don't get significant additional funding. I'd like to touch base on one thing that was spoken about earlier today. The CSAC is not we're not building roads. We can't tell the agencies, this is what we want you to do, because you can deal with children, you're raising children, and there's no black and white way to do that. And every agency has an idea as to how they can do it, and sometimes they come up with some really good ideas, and we fund those. Staff and the volunteers have done what you have asked of us. Now it's time for you to follow through and courageously do what you said you would do. We have an opportunity right now to be that community that truly cares about our children and their future, and this opportunity is in your hands. Please approve a 10% millage rate that was recommended by CSAC. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, welcome.
Hello. Good morning still. Eric Flowers, Indian River County Sheriff. I hadn't intended to speak today, but I just want to speak from the heart about the idea that the government is spending dollars on these kids either way, right? Either we put the dollars into these organizations and folks like Elizabeth back there with the Boys and Girls Club, or the other programs that we have, Moonshot, or we have folks from Healthy Start here, whoever it is, they're putting their money into that, the charity dollars that go into these kids. Or you're gonna end up spending it on our side, with our deputies out with these kids, because they're gonna be running the streets, because they're gonna be breaking into houses. And one of the reasons that our community is so special and so different from other places, and why people are moving here like crazy is because we do have programs that keep these kids busy, that keep them off the street, that keep them occupied, and that really make a difference in our community. So I sit on the board of CSAC, and I know I wasn't there for the actual vote. I know you guys have a job to do to balance out what money you're able to spend, and I know I'm going to be coming back to you at the podium asking for my budget to be funded. But at the end of the day, one way or another, we're going to be spending money on these kids, and I'd much rather see it be done through good charitable causes and good things in their lives than interacting with law enforcement. So I'm supportive of at the very least, keeping it the same millage and them getting the increase as that goes. And if you have the ability to do beyond that, then I understand that would be wonderful. But I'm certainly supportive of spending tax dollars in this way rather than in the law enforcement capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? All right, commissioners. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Commissioner Fleischer.
I just wanted to address a couple of things we've heard. I want to thank everybody for stepping up to the plate and informing us and the public of the information that was provided. I will say that an inference was made that 2 of the commissioners were at the meetings. Well, point be known that the chair appoints the person, the designee, the liaison to the any and all of our committees, our advisory committees. So there is membership there. By no way, shape, or form should it be construed that other members, from various reasons, do not know. It is actually not good practice for 2 of us to be in the same room at the same time when it comes to matters that will be addressed to this board as well. Another point was made about there's $50,000 that was earmarked for administrative, so the public should know that has to come back to us. CSAC is an advisory board, and that funding, if there is a vote or multiple votes to get where it has to get to, that number needs to be brought here. That's a decision for this board to make, not for an advisory board to make. The advisory board has a budget that has to be interpreted, but the advisory board does not have an actual budget. It is the budget from the taxpayers, from the members of that is seen through as good stewards by this board, not by CSAC. So CSAC can make recommendations, and they have to be interpreted, brought back to this committee. That's why we do have a liaison. So I just wanted to clarify that, so I don't know if you have a concern that that's actually happening without knowledge or without presentation. I've heard inferences about Martin County. It's ironic that, yeah, we do spend a little, just a tad less, not a lot less. But in all matters, you know, when we talk about those all ships rise, you know, and I guess money, funding appears to be the answer. If we're going to fund something, it'll be better. Well, I'm here to say that if you look at some of the statistics about juveniles and about crime and about truancy and about achievement, and you want to compare them to another county, no disrespect to Martin County, it's a very nice county. Okay? Take a look at our numbers. Take a look at what's happening here. Bob, I think you said it. We're different. A lot of great things are happening here with the budget we have. No further.
Thank you. Commissioners, other questions, comments? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I'm going to start with saying that I didn't join till January as the liaison or as a board member, a voting board member on the CSAC committee. But I know from the very beginning, when I was elected in 2020, I had questions about CSAC, about transparency, about duplication of funding with the school board, the hospital board, or whoever it may be, and why we did it, and what were the results, and what were the outcomes, and all that sort of stuff. And I got those answered pretty well by even then County Administrator Jason Brown and others, but it still wasn't where I wanted it, and I know that the Deputy County Administrator and I had many conversations of this, and it was on his list when he became in that position and worked with the new county administrator to get things changed. And those changes have been exceptional. I can tell you that I have seen more changes in there in the last 8 months than I can imagine. And those were some of the concerns that we have. I believe Commissioner Fleischer, you and I had concerns about a couple, when we funded CSAC in the past, about a couple of agencies. What were they really doing? Has anybody checked on them? Has anybody monitored them? Has anybody done anything more with regards to what they're doing? Are we giving money to the right people? Are we just giving money away and not caring where it goes? Those changes were answered pretty rapidly when Cindy and Amy and with Leanne and Maya and all the rest of them got busy over there and started making some changes and had accountability and transparency. So whether it's anybody in this community that's worried about transparency and what they're doing, I can tell you that transparency exists fully now. As for duplication of services, that was one of the other big things that we were all concerned with as commissioners, and I think the CSAC board was too. Even the CSAC board prior to Cindy's arrival was concerned, but nobody knew how to do anything about it. Nobody was sitting down at the table. It was probably even our fault as commissioners that we didn't demand it to say, why aren't we having the county administrator or the budget office sit down with the hospital district or the school board or whatever and see what we are duplicating or what we're not duplicating, or why are we, do they even need funding? And we didn't do that. But that was, I know Commissioner Moss had this committee before I did. I know that she had addressed that. And then I definitely addressed it come January, as that was our top priority. And it was already being done when I joined in January by Cindy and her staff. And I talked with Frank Isley from the hospital board. He is fairly new, but he understands it clearly as what to do. I've talked with Paul Westcott about it, and he understands it clearly. And I think the school board does also. I mean, we do have an ex-principal that's running our show now. Sorry, Dr. Jones, we like having her. But so she knows what's going on with regards to duplication, if any, with the school board. I can assure you those are being addressed, and I know the Taxpayers Association spoke out about that, and I think that's almost been priority one as to what we're doing. Can we go through it all? Can we get rid of it all just like the snap of our fingers and say we can't do this or we can't do that? It takes time to sort it out as to what the program is, what they're doing, and where we're going with this thing. So all of that is by far, in the last 8 months, has been exceptional, and it's been a job well done, and we as commissioners ought to be proud of what they're doing over there. I've sat on since I've been in there since January, I've sat on the grant subcommittee board and all this stuff, and Tony's right. That's an awesome group of people. They're a lot smarter than I am in there, and they do a great job, and Bob and his crew do a great job with regards to what they're doing. And there's no, picking or choosing, well, because, they're my favorite or they're not my favorite. And they do a great job. The site visits that were never done before, because here's Leanne, she's all by herself. She was the only staff member we had. We weren't able to do site visits. Now we're able to do site visits, and those site visits are being done. And believe me, those agencies know that they are being looked at by Big Brother now. And that's another thing that's changed and has made this very, I'll call it high and tight. So that's happening also. The next thing is people ask me all the time, why are we spending money on children's services? Well, you've heard all the reasons. I'm not going to cover them again about why we do it, and the sheriff made a good statement, either pay me now or pay me later. But there are some things that are mandated too by the state, and some things that need to be done that we would be funding in greater capacity with regards to children's services. We would have to have, like Bob said, we'd have to have an office building. We'd have to pay for staff, pens, pencils, and paper and all that stuff, benefits, you name it. We would do that. So we let these groups do it like that. And they're doing a good job. Some people also say, well, you have groups that are able to raise a lot of money. Well, Megan's here. I'm going to pick on her from Healthy Start. They're one of the big ones. They do raise a lot of money. Heck, I raised $62,000 out of my own money Dancing with the Stars last year, just like the sheriff has done, former sheriff has done in the past to raise money for that group. But they do a lot of things. They do a lot of things. And it's very important that we support those, a lot of things. So with that being said, I could go on, but I think things are happening. My mission, my statement to Cindy and her staff and to the CSAC board is stay the course. It will all work out. We'll take some criticism, but I think in the end, when you see the final product, you'll be good to go. And that mission will be completed. It will be ongoing, but it'll be where we need it and where we need to go. So at this time, and we did make those promises in the past, and I know we paused last year, and I was at the time not real happy about pausing, but I think now I look back on it, maybe it wasn't such a bad idea when we paused to not increase the millage at the time, because that allowed what I had been describing to happen. We were able to hire staff and get things moving and make things more accountable, more transparent, and all that, and all that. So I think maybe it ended up being a good thing, but we still made that commitment to do it. And I like the idea that things come back to this board and we can change our mind versus it being an ordinance or being its own agency and all that sort of stuff, that we can change our mind. And we can change our mind as late as the budget workshop as to what we want to do. If we want to increase, or if we want to lessen the pain. But the budget department, Kristen and her folks, need to know what we're going to spend. So right now, you know, the 0.125 is good, but I think we should seriously consider, and I've been going to vote for the increase of the additional 10%. I think we can do that. We're looking, you know, for that kind of money, it only increases to $300,000 additional, $300,000, I think, if I'm asked right, with regards to that. I think we can do that, and I think it's money well spent, because I think we're still on a mission, and I think we have to stay the course. So with that, Madam Chairman, I've said my piece.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Moss?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Ehrman, for saying that in retrospect, the pause perhaps was necessary. I think it definitely was. I spent two years on CSAC. Last year, I felt a little bit like St. Stephen. For those who don't know, he was shot with arrows, and that was over the pause. But honestly, it just was necessary. Good work was being done always by the volunteers. I want to thank the volunteers. They always did good work. But not having staff to support that work, I think that allowed many things to not be as good as they could be, in fact, as they are now. Yeah, I think you're definitely on the road to great improvement, even with Ms. Emerson having been here only 8 months, and but the additional staff has made a huge difference. I could see that during my tenure, which ended last calendar year, that great strides have been made. And I was very happy to see that, and I compliment all of you, staff and volunteers, because it is the volunteers. And I sat through, for those who don't know, at the time, this was last year, it was occurring over 3 days to evaluate all the proposals. And so I sat with the CSAC committee for the 3 days. And you can see, having had that experience, how thorough everything is evaluated. It's a fascinating process in a way. What we did was, at that time, each agency that was requesting funding for programming, and for the community, it is by program, not by agency. And I think, that might be an important point to think about. But each program was reviewed very carefully. Very good questions were asked. It's very, I was very impressed by that. And again, thank you to the volunteers. I am, though, a little, I'm not sure, this idea of this 10% increase and a advisory board, almost in a sense, establishing its own budget. I'm not clear that there's a precedent for that, or that it's even in any of the materials, any of the, the rules and regulations for CSAC, or for any other advisory board for that matter. And I think in a way, it's, my take on it is, it's almost unfair to CSAC, because there's no way that you can know, we have to know the big picture, and there's no way that you can know it. When you're coming up with a number, we have to put it within the context of fire stations that we need to build or refurbish. We need to put it within the context of the sheriff's budget. We need to put it within context of additional employees that might be required. Department heads are reviewing now. It hasn't come before us, but they're reviewing their departments. How many more people do they need to serve the entire community more effectively? So these are all the, or some, I should say, some of the issues that, of which we are aware, and there's no way for you to be aware of it. So I think it was, in a sense, a bit, maybe just unfair to you to ask you to pull a number out or suggest a number without knowing some of these other factors. But again, thank you for your work on this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ehrman?
Thank you. Commissioner Moss, I can address how that came about, that conversation came about. We were in the meeting. They knew that this was coming up, that the amount would come up, that budget office needs to know. I think it was Ms. Woodhouse that mentioned to ask the board, and they kind of, as you know, you've been there, being you're the commissioner there, they look at you and they ask you as to, can we throw a number out there for our budget based on the figures we had in the past? And my answer to Ms. Woodhouse and others that were there were, I have no problem with you doing that, but understand it always comes back to the board to make the final decision with regards to, it can be a recommendation that just like any group, you want to spend X amount of dollars on this or whatever, it has to go back to me, back to the board as to what we're going to do. It's not an official request. It's just a number that you would like to see, which is any citizen could come up and do the same thing. So that's how it came back, and I think it was stated in the letter that we received from the Taxpayers Association that Commissioner Ehrman was asked when CSAC would receive increased funding. It had been previously promised. Commissioner Ehrman stated that while previous commissioners indicated that CSAC increases would come, the Board of County Commissioners last year voted not to increase CSAC's funding levels beyond the current allotment. And he said he, being me, also indicated that CSAC members of staff were free to put together the desired funding levels and present them to the BCC and county budgeting for their consideration. And that's all it was consideration. It was an ask. We can say yes, we can say no. They had the last meeting, they came up with the amount, they saw the amount, it was funded at 0.125, and they were given three options that they wanted to recommend back to the board, and not by a majority vote, it was approved to ask the county for an additional 10% over what the budget office was recommending.
I guess my concern with it is that it perhaps in some way raises expectations that it can,
There was
or
no promises made.
Okay. Well, because, let me backtrack just a minute. Even with the millage rate, it could be up to that amount. So that, you know, that's the cap. So it was a parameter. You know, it was not a promise. It was a parameter. The budget, for those who don't know, this budget is decided annually. So every year, you know, we vote on it. And as I was saying earlier, we take into consideration many different parameters. We're required to. We have to have the big picture.
So I just want to throw this out there. TDC is another advisory board to the county that makes budgetary recommendations, of which we take their advice, and then some years we approve what they give us, and some years we reallocate. In the past, CSAC has made recommendations, and we approve it or we don't. Yes, those two boards specifically are very different in what they do than like Ag Advisory or Public Safety, although Public Safety actually gave us recommendations on opioid dollars that we had 2 actual meetings on to discuss their recommendations. So we have boards so they can vet some of that stuff and then bring it to us with background information, and we can have more robust conversations. It helps make the work of government more efficient. So all of our boards are welcome to bring anything, make any recommendation to us. Do we have to listen to them? No, they're advisory boards, but we have them to do work for us. So I, you know, just throw that out there, that they are not unique. They're not the only ones that bring us advice on budgetary processes. Commissioner Lord, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just for the record, in May of '22, I was not on this board, and I understand when Ms. Woodhouse said there was commitments. I will say that I think the landscape has changed since May of 2022 within our county. I think all of the commissioners get phone calls each and every day about increases in not only their lifestyle, their homeowners insurance, food. We've already talked about all of that. This commission is tasked with forming, revising policy, and approving budgets. Last year alone, CSAC was granted over a 19% increase. This year's currently a staff recommendation is 13.6%. And as we move forward in this county fiscally, where we've asked our constitutions and our department heads to develop their policies, all knowing that last year was about a 13% increase in property values, we do not know that number yet. Obviously, that's directly tied to the millage rate. As we stand here as commissioned officers, knowing that we are undergoing a rate study for our utilities next week individually, also knowing that more than likely our garbage and recycling is going up, in addition to, as mentioned earlier, this county's own liability and exposure insurance is going up 3%. So with the status quo at 13.6%, would give CSAC over $3.1 million, and everybody on this dais has been in CSAC. Me for 12 years and others for many, many more. And we went through those tough years, and we struggled through those tough years. Miranda and several people in the audience were on there when I was there. And yes, was it less efficient than it is now? Absolutely. And with the advent of Cindy Emerson and her team coming over, streamlining, taking a closer look at things, perhaps cutting the fat out of a few agencies, I'm all welcome for that. I know this is a very, very trying time for you. I know that your agencies have manpower issues, but please understand that we have to look at this county as a whole from a 30,000-foot height. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll move staff recommendation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I would like to say a few words. One, I want to remind everybody that the purpose of government of our counties in the state of Florida is to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of our communities. Some of that is providing for roads, some of that is providing utilities, but some of that is providing for support for our residents. And a lot of that support for our residents comes in the form of family support. I think it was mentioned earlier that We have single-family homes. We do have single-family homes. Are those single-family homes through the fault of the people within them? I don't know, but for the grace of God go I, sometimes I feel in these situations. But I do think that it is our job as a community to help elevate those that are not as fortunate in some things to the level where they can participate in our community, whether that's through jobs, whether that's through being small business owners, whether that's through raising good and healthy families, whatever that case may be, that's part of the role that we play. It takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a community to elevate a community. And Indian River County is a village. And I feel it's our duty to help raise those that can't raise themselves because it raises the community standard overall. I'm fine with the motion that's been made. I think that that's fair at this point. We are still going through a lot of changes at CSAC. I give complete kudos to the committee, CSAC, to your subcommittees, the Needs Assessment Committee, the Grant Review Committee, and the staff. I'm glad we have the staff. That was a huge step. And if nothing else, that allows that group and that committee to answer the questions that have been asked by the community as far as oversight, as far as transparency. You can't provide those things and answer those questions if you have one half-time person who is doing a fantastic job, but it's a lot to do. I think that everything that has been asked of CSAC, they have done. If there are still things that need to be accomplished or that people feel aren't being done from the perspective of transparency, from the perspective of oversight, bring those to the table in a tangible way. What do you want to see that they're not doing? But to speak in metaphors and to speak in flowery language without specifics is not fair to the group. I can't interpret what people say unless they are direct. I want to see X, Y, and Z. Okay, that is a charge that we can then march down. And I'm fine with that. The other thing I will say is there are people that have been part of the process that have been positive or been very supportive, and there's people that have provided great oversight. CSAC has a good mix of people that are looking at it from all angles. It is not just a check the box, everything is sunshine and rainbows group. There is deliberations in those meetings. There's deliberations in the grant subcommittee. There's deliberations in the Needs Assessment Committee. And that is a good thing. You cannot have a good outcome if you don't have all insights. So I appreciate that. But I would also say that in those deliberations, you have to be willing to put yourself in the other person's shoes and look at it from their perspective, good and bad. And if you're not willing to stay and have the conversation, then you're not going to end up with a result. You're just lobbing grenades and not staying to be part of the battle. And that's not effective. The last thing I'll kind of sum up is, again, there are areas in this community that are underserved. There are areas in this community that do not have access to the services. And sometimes it's not because they don't have the transportation to get there. They don't even have the services available without having to drive 45 minutes to an hour. And if you're a family or a child that's struggling, and I'm not talking about necessarily wraparound services, after school services, I'm talking about food, I'm talking about healthcare, and your mother or father is working 2 or 3 jobs, when and who is going to provide you with those services, and how are you going to get there? And that is something that it's easy to sit in this building where you're around a lot of those resources. But if you go to other areas of the county, you're not around those resources and those resources aren't available to you, and a large swath of our community comes from areas like that. So to the sheriff's point, and I have said this a lot myself, we can invest in our kids now and their future potential, in them being good citizens and active members of our communities, our future entrepreneurs, our future community leaders, our future teachers, our future firemen. Or we can invest in the jail and we can house them and we can try to figure out ways to provide them with those opportunities when they finish their time, as I know he has some reentry programs. So we can either invest in prior entry or reentry. I prefer prior entry. I think it's cheaper in the long run, and quite frankly, it's going to result in a much better community for Indian River County. So those are my 3.17 cents, I guess, at this point, but we do have a motion by Commissioner Lohr with a second by Commissioner Flesher. So unless, yes, Mr. DeBrawl.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Remember when we tried to raise the tax, and this would be an increase in taxes if I read this correctly, that you are required now to have a referendum at a general election. So we are timely if you would want to go ahead and increase the tax to have that referendum, and we'd be able to get it on the ballot in time for the general election coming up in November.
I don't think that the motion is just to leave the millage the same.
Correct.
Oh, if we wanted
If you would increase it,
Okay.
I think you would need to go the referendum route.
Okay.
Madam
I
Chair,
appreciate that. Yes.
But perhaps the ability to go up to the quarter mill is built into the ordinance, so I don't know that it would require referendum, but depending on your outcome here, we can look at that.
Right. I don't think that that's the motion today, but we'll see how it goes. And to everybody's point on that, past commissions or boards cannot bind the decision of future commissions and boards. And that is one of the great things about, our Constitution, and that's why you have elections. If you don't like things that happened, you can change that by having different people make those decisions. I do agree, though, that we did have a very robust conversation many years ago, and it is nice to see whether it's through actual millage increases or property value increases that more money is being invested there. And I look forward to CSAC continuing to grow as a structure and get to the point where everybody can be comfortable with that investment. So that being said, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Ehrman dissenting. All right, thank you. And with that, we will move on to 13A1, which is authorization to proceed with foreclosure on code enforcement cases. We'll give everybody just a minute or two to clear out.
I sent it to you. No? I thought I sent it to you last.
I cannot see today, I swear. My eyes are like...
It's on my drive. I don't know that
All right. Go ahead.
Good,
Welcome. Sorry.
It's all right. I don't know if it's
It's still morning.
Okay, there we go.
You got it. 14 more minutes to the morning.
Commissioners. Susan Prado, Deputy County Attorney, on behalf of Indian River County Attorney's Office. I am coming here today on behalf of basically code enforcement to talk about a couple of cases we have that have come to us from the Code Enforcement Board recommending foreclosure. So I apologize, bear with me, as we have more than we normally do this time. So our first case, and I apologize, I thought I had a presentation, but I don't know what happened to it, so
That's all right.
It's okay. So the first case that we have is going to be case number 2021-11-002, 11-0002, I'm sorry, in the Frenesi case.
So this particular case, it was brought and action started in 2021 with a complaint regarding vehicle storage, junk vehicles, junk trash debris, and weeds in excess of 12 inches. This case had an evidentiary hearing back in May 23rd, 2022. This respondent was at that point in time given a 90-day time frame to correct the violations and also got an extension after that 90 days to August 26, 2022, from August 26, 2022 to September 23rd, 2022. At the compliance hearing the following Monday, September 26, 2022, Code Enforcement Board found that the violation had not been corrected and they have a $250 per day fine running on the property. The order is recorded in the official records book of Indian River County Public Records, and the current fine as of today is $140,750. This is not a homestead property, and we are able to move forward with foreclosure on that property if it still remains out of compliance. As I stated, the Code Enforcement Board said yes to go ahead and move forward at our hearing in February. And I believe this is the attorney for the case who I've had contact with, Mr. Paul, and I forgive me on your last name.
O'Neill, good
Thank you,
morning.
Just
Mr. O'Neill.
one question before you start.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you want to take these individually or as a group?
I think we can take them individually because there's a couple others that have come up where we need to
Okay.
maybe take a.
So,
reduce them.
so we'll talk and we'll talk about each case individually and take a vote on each case individually. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Your Honor. Yes, I represent Ms. Frenesi, and I represent her brother, Michelle Toussaint. And Mr. Toussaint is actually the individual who unknowingly and unintentionally purchased this house in 2017. If that sounds weird, it is. He was, quite frankly, the victim of a serious misrepresentation, kind of his worst nightmare. Mr. Toussaint is a custodian at a school down in St. Lucie County, Lincoln Park Academy. He saved his money and decided he wanted to buy a house. So he came up to Gifford. He got a real estate agent who took him to 4590. And there's a house with a number on it that says 4590 in a lockbox. And she opens the lockbox and he looks around inside of the 2-bedroom house and says, I want it. And they sign a contract. The house was owned by Fannie Mae at the time. He pays them $41,000 in cash, gets the keys. He starts remodeling the house. He pays the taxes on the house every year. A few years later, he starts getting notices from this county. None of this is this county's fault, by the way. He starts getting notices saying you've got junk vehicles blighting your property. You're in an ordinance violation. He and Elsie, his sister, the named owner, initially ignore these because they say, that's not our property, that's the neighboring property. After some time, they begin to investigate and they make a terrible discovery. And I have affidavits from the real estate agent, I have the MLS listing, everything to verify this is in fact what happened. They were not deeded the house that he purchased. He was deeded the vacant lot next to the house. That lot, you can look at Google Earth and you'll see there were 6 broken down vehicles. The good news is there are now only 2. Over the weekend at his own expense, he had 4 of the 6 vehicles towed. There are 2 remaining. One is a giant RV and the other is a massive flatbed truck. So it's going to be a little difficult to get those junk vehicles off the property. The point is, none of this is the county's problem, but you do have, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic, the opportunity to prevent an injustice. I'm trying to help Mr. Toussaint. His real estate agent, Barbara Rosenbaum, went and hired a lawyer with her own money to try to fix the problem. That lawyer, who shall remain unnamed, didn't do anything. So a couple years have passed. I don't know that I can help him get the house for complicated legal reasons that I won't get into. But yesterday I did file a lawsuit against Fannie Mae. So it's a little bit of a David versus Goliath lawsuit for misrepresentation. I'm trying to get him damages. I'm trying to at least save him something. He spent $41,000 out of pocket. This is a guy who's a janitor at Lincoln Park Academy. And he's about to walk away with absolutely nothing. He shouldn't have waited as long as he did to deal with this property. They thought it was a clerical error. They thought it could be figured out. They found the named owner of the house, who's now deceased, talked to the heirs, hoping they could clear it up. Unfortunately, the heirs were not nearly as magnanimous as they hoped. Now the heirs are staking a claim to the house. they've begun parking their cars in the driveway. So he's now facing losing the house and facing losing the property. I have photos of him towing away the cars at his own expense. Again, 4 of the 6 cars are gone. He is working to bring it into compliance. If that $140,000 fine sticks, of course, this is all a massive waste of time because the property is not worth a tiny fraction of that if you foreclose on it and sell it. I don't know what you're going to get for it, but probably not much more than the cash I have in my pocket, which isn't very much. So what I would ask, if it's within this county's power, if it's within this board's power, if it's within the county attorney's power, I don't know who, if some or all of that could be forgiven if the property is brought into full compliance. Again, I can give Ms. Prado photos. I brought you photos. I brought you an affidavit from the real estate agent. I brought you the original MLS listing, which misstates the address of the house. So I've got documents for all of this. I'm asking you for a little bit of mercy, I guess. None of this is the county's fault. I wish that my clients, who are very unsophisticated, English is their second language, I wish that they would have taken steps sooner to fix the problem, but they are taking steps now. They do have somebody who's going to help them navigate this. So whatever this board has the power to do,
Thank you.
I ask you to do it.
Ms. Prado.
Yes, ma'am.
This has gone to code enforcement. Like, I guess for the commissioners and for the attorney, I think it's important that we talk about the process and where we are today and what we can and cannot do. This has gone to code enforcement. Code
Yes.
enforcement has entered an order.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm sorry, Mr. O'Neill did not present me with the questions about the reduction. Otherwise, I would have told him that that does not happen at this venue. So I can tell you that this case, it went in front of code enforcement. Code enforcement board entered the order for the $250 a day. They are the ones that entered the order to move forward with foreclosure. This is almost like I hate to say it, but it's almost like a courtesy kind of. We come here because you all have given us authority to move forward with all foreclosures, but we still come forward and say, hey, would you still like to move forward, board? Is this still your flavor for the day? Are we still going or not? And for you all to let us know. I will tell you, yes, that there is some sort of issue. It's a vacant property that's next door to the home. We are aware of that. However, we are bound by Florida statute. The Florida statute says that we have to go off who the owner is on the tax record and who the owner is on the property appraiser site. And as it lists Ms. Frenesi, I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong, as the owner, that is who we have noticed, that is who is responsible. So this is where we are. And I can tell you at this point in time, there was some urgency to try to get this at least cleaned up because I know that there were some people that were living in an RV at the home at some point in time. It was being used like as a repair shop at some point in time. Lots of activity on the vacant lot. So what it is there's a home he believed he bought and a vacant lot next door. It's the vacant lot that would be foreclosing on. So, and I did advise Mr. O'Neill that it's not that the foreclosure would happen today. As the board knows, this is something that still takes some time. It would probably be at least 30 days before outside counsel were to file a foreclosure, and most of our properties don't actually go to foreclosure. I think we've just foreclosed on one and about to foreclose on, the sale is tomorrow on another one. But other than that, most of them get resolved beforehand. So as I've advised him, he has time to do that. As far as the reduction in fine, if the code enforcement issues are resolved and the case comes into compliance, he is more than welcome to come in front of code enforcement board and plead their case there as to whether or not they want to reduce the fine or not. That is up to the code enforcement board in their realm of jurisdiction.
And as I recall, typically when people do come into compliance, if there is a large fine and they go in front of code enforcement, in the past, not always, that has been reduced to administrative costs plus 10%.
For the most part, yes, because at least the county would recuperate the cost to prosecute, which we're entitled to by statute, plus usually the 10%. Yes,
Correct.
That's generally the amount.
So what I'm hearing is that there is still time for the violations to be cleared up potentially, and that to move forward before the foreclosure is filed. But today, code enforcement has moved to the foreclosure process, and we are charged with being asked to engage counsel or not.
Correct. That's where we're at.
Yes, Commissioner Fleischer.
Council, very passionate and colorful presentation. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Counselor,
Yes, sir.
when did this all begin? I want a little timeline.
So I have the file with me. It began back in 2021.
2021. Okay, so 3 years we're in abeyance of we own the wrong property. Sounds like an error or omission, so council's correct. It's not on our watch or table, or at no time do we have liability or fault.
Correct.
It was 3 years that this error was left to fester. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it sounds like there's other avenues for the property owner to be able to address other than here or other than with code enforcement because they've already been engaged. So it more or less sounds like even if we begin the process, you still have some work to do, and that attorney that the Realtor hired also has some work to be doing as well. And I think that the property owner will be made whole again in those resources, not here. I think we have to act upon what code enforcement has worked at, what the board has worked at, and it's been several years. So with that, I make motion to approve attorney's recommendation.
There's a motion. I will second that. Is there other comments on this case?
Madam Chair, just curious, was there a title company involved in this at closing?
Yes, sir, there was.
That's where the attorney comes in.
Yes, sir, there was. If I can explain in 10 seconds, the problem is no survey was ever conducted, so the legal description for the lot was accurate. It was the street address that was incorrect. Street address is meaningless. We can't really go after the title company because they warranted the vacant lot. I'm involving them, trust me, but I don't see that we have any recourse. All they do is they take the legal description, which, as you know, an average homeowner doesn't understand, and they say, sure, we guarantee title, clear title to that. That's what they did. So the problem we have was the street address was wrong, but the legal address was for this vacant lot. So that's what was deeded to my client, and that's all that the title company guaranteed.
Have we, Ms. Prado, I don't know if you know, have we had situations like this? I mean, it's kind of like the doctor operating on the wrong knee. Have we had a situation where the physical address doesn't match the, I guess, mailing address?
Not since I have been here, but I'm not saying there couldn't have been one. I don't know, Bill's been here much longer than I have. I don't know if he's seen it, but I have yet to see it in the almost 5 years I've been here.
No, this is pretty bizarre.
It is.
So in other words, would we be able to give the gentleman 30 days before we file?
He's gonna have that anyway.
Before outside counsel?
He essentially will. I mean, because quite frankly, I know I'm not going to be sending these over today because I have to get everything together and send them over to outside counsel, and they are not going to just go and file like tomorrow. They'll probably go out by end of week, and then that way I can go ahead and get that started, and then they start their process from there. But it's probably at least another 30 days before they go ahead and file.
At the least, usually is how it, I mean, and through no fault, it's not like staff is, it's just the way the process works. It's at least, once we vote on it, 30 to sometimes 45 to 60 days before. I mean, I don't want to guarantee any time, but at least 30 days to get the process started. So there's, again, still time. If he were to come into compliance before the foreclosure is filed, then the foreclosure will not be filed. And it sounds like coming into compliance is going to require those other 2 trailers or whatever they are to be removed.
And just to be clear, I was told by the attorney that even if we spend all this money, which he's now spending out of pocket to come into compliance, that there's no guarantee that the fines will be reduced, or if they will be reduced, by how much. We're talking about $140,000.
Well, and I can speak to that because the attorney has to say attorney things. which is why you're here. I don't mean that badly. I don't mean that badly. There is no guarantee. However, what I can tell you is how it usually works. If our goal is not to be punitive, our goal is to achieve compliance.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you come into compliance, what typically has happened is that, again, they will reduce that fine to administrative costs plus 10%, which is still a cost to your client, but it is way better than the $100 and some odd $1,000 he's looking at. And there's the, yes.
We seek mitigation, not litigation.
Yes, sir.
And that has happened on numerous occasions since I've been here for the past 8 years. I can at least say that much.
Yes, and that is that is a factual statement. I have no control, and neither does this
Right.
board over what the other board decides. That's why I said there's no guarantee. So,
Okay, other comments and questions, concerns on this particular, it does sound like a mess. You are gonna have your hands full with this. If not,
I went to law school.
I don't know if law school has prepared him for this kind of chaos, but good luck. All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion carries on that one. And we'll move on to Richardson. I'm not going to even try to go through the case numbers. I'm just going to call the names.
okay, thank you. So on the Richardson case, this case started in 2021. Complaint regarding property maintenance, site plan nonconformance, and use established without a site plan approval. Back in 2021, there was an evidentiary hearing. It was held in violation. It was given some time to come into compliance. In July 2021, the Code Enforcement Board determined it was not in compliance and started a $100 per day fine that has since been recorded in the public records of Indian River County. The total fine today is $99,000. At this point in time, this property still has not been brought into compliance. And so we are seeking to move forward with foreclosure, as the Code Enforcement Board has also authorized us to do so.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions, and concerns on this? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to TWLS 2025 LLC.
Thank you. This is another code enforcement action that was brought and it started in 2022. Hearing on June 27, 2022 for evidentiary holding them in violation of violating our code for several different items. Vehicle parking, storage, zoning district use violation, commercial vehicles at residence, and a home occupation violation. The compliance date was given for a month later on July 25th, 2022. The property had not been brought into compliance, and the board at that case decided to do $250 per day, and the order has been recorded in the public records of Indian River County. The property is still out of compliance. As of today, the current fine is $156,500. I will tell you that on this one, I did meet with staff and the property owner yesterday. He did bring in some photographs demonstrating he is attempting to clean up, and I did tell him I would at least advise you that he is starting to make some progress. And I advised him the same thing that I advised this last attorney was if he brings it into compliance, we won't be bringing a foreclosure, but we're still asking to at least move forward with the process in case he does not.
We have a motion and a second. On the first TWLS, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Before we get into the second TWLS, what is going on with people that they're just not paying attention to any of this stuff for 4 years, and now we're in a foreclosure situation and magically I want to fix it at the last minute? Is that
Yes,
a good
that's-
summary? of
That's usually it, because we don't really,
I mean, you could have saved yourself a lot of problems if you just fixed it the first month instead of here we are the 17,000th month. Okay,
yes,
never
that's
mind.
exactly it, Madam Chair.
TWLS 2035 LLC. He's pushing his time frame back here. All right, let's go.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, another case, the same owner, similar issues, zoning district use violation, vehicle parking storage, no building permits. Once again started in September 26, 2022 with being held in violation. They went ahead and had the hearing after that, on October 24th, 2022, in order to determine whether they were in compliance. They were deemed not to be, and a $250 per day fine was issued. That order is recorded in the public records of Indian River County. The current fine as of today is $133,750. Once again, same owner met with yesterday. He said he's working on it, so.
Magical. It's magical how foreclosures bring people to the table. All right, commissioners. I have a motion by Commissioner Ehrman. I'll second it. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Last one is Mortgage Assets Management LLC.
Oddly enough, we're foreclosing on the company that foreclosed on this one. So,
I haven't had enough coffee for this.
sorry. So this code enforcement matter did start in 2023. This is a relatively newer one. They had an evidentiary hearing on September 25th, 2023. The respondent was found in violation for several different issues, being unsecured vacant structure, overgrown weeds, and a swimming pool maintenance violation. This one is a little bit of a more of a hurry because there's a swimming pool involved, and you can see all kinds of stuff around it, and it's kind of collapsing, and so it's not that great.
Is this the one that was on a corner lot that had, I'm thinking of a different one that had a swimming pool?
This one's on a cul-de-sac.
Okay, never mind.
Anyway, so this one was held to be non-compliant, still not in compliance as of today. There's a $100 per day fine running. Since November 27, 2023, we had to wait the 3 months in order to bring this. That's why I'm bringing this here today pursuant to Florida statute. The order has been recorded in the public records of Indian River County, and the current fine on this one is $13,600.
Well, I guess we're doing them a favor since we're doing it before it gets to 130,000. So, commissioners.
To approve.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Moss with a second by Commissioner Ehrman. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, ladies. Just a public service announcement for everybody, please get your stuff in order before it gets to this point. All right. Oh, we're at the end. All right, seeing that.
I mean, if you want more.
No,
mean,
no,
you
I
have
think
the
we've
chair.
had enough. Commissioner Lohr is
have
gonna
much of
be
a palate
angry here quickly. All he had was a banana for breakfast. So anything else for the good of the order? And before anybody can say any, seeing none, we are adjourned. All right.